Google Maps,
Oh,
just the internet, yeah.
Why don't I,
But, do you need the password for that?
not if I can just plug my laptop.
Huh.
I may have to sit on this other table. I love the fact that you just fearlessly plug that in.
Pardon?
I love the fact that you just fearlessly kind of plug that into the computer. Well, it's an HDMI cable, it's plugged to a monitor, so I'm hoping there's.
Hey, Tony, I didn't even recognize you there. I don't think I've seen you with your glasses on. I'm Jackie Wells. Yeah, I haven't seen you in so long.
I bet it's been,
I know. Getting better looking every year.
she's around.
Just see her walk, and yeah, she's such a doll. She's so sweet. Well, then, way back when I first came, I saw you a few times, music board, just wanted to.
That's right.
So I know what you did with the music school was amazing.
It's an amazing story, you know.
Yeah, it truly is.
800.
I mean, without your involvement, that wouldn't have happened. No, I mean, I'm not pretending to really know everything, but.
It was a great community story.
Are you convened? You know, stand up, it's like a stand-up desk.
Just about. Dee's trying to figure out the monitor, but we'll probably get started in a minute or two.
No, the music school was a great community story. Closing the middle school was really good. What would you do with kids who lose a couple of years?
And of course, Corey's involvement
Oh,
with
okay.
Corey, you know, just classrooms at McCall or.
Corey and Sandy, and, you know, and the fact that they really, because it was not connected to the school system in any way, there was really no system in place to protect it during this process. And so when that became obvious, it was just a great community uprising. Without any noise, it was just, you know, this is something we can get out of.
Was like, you know.
It was easy, it was easy because of the support, you know, I mean, it's the same old story. This was,
Just how.
But it wasn't-
Beautiful fire it and.
well, that story in and of itself, all
Old-
the classes.
Preservation of all old buildings.
It's not been sold to you.
Almost like building.
I had to buy it first.
New buildings that are historic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the things weren't organized on
Yeah.
that point in time. And we didn't know, because I looked at it as real estate, it's funny.
Interesting, because you're versing on
So,
Well,
made it do this.
all the new technologies are not helping with sustainability.
Big, you know, he's supposed to remove that.
New technologies that
Like from way back then, so that when they had their car, they could get their own. The world's
construction
not.
I don't know, it could have been both.
Yeah.
Could've been- So, we knew it was there, and he had an obligation under the purchase and sale to remove it. We were ready to, getting ready to close.
But,
That's really what I'm
Okay, good.
And some
I
of
was
it
doing
was
it that
surprised,
well,
'cause
though.
Great, not everybody.
Good evening, WinCam, and welcome to the Town of Winchester, Massachusetts Planning Board meeting for February 27th. Thank you so much for those listening at home and all those in the audience tonight. We really appreciate your presence. It means a lot to the board. We always appreciate input, obviously, from anyone who comes to our meetings, and we're grateful for that because it helps us do a better job. Before we get started, I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments about obviously a very tragic situation that's on everyone's mind. We're not going to discuss it tonight, but I just wanted to acknowledge something that everyone in this room and certainly all over town is thinking about and weighing very heavy on all of our minds. It's the tragic event that happened this past Saturday. It's obviously something that no one in our town ever wanted to have to read about happening anywhere, and certainly not in our town. And on behalf of the Planning Board, I just wanted to extend our heartfelt prayers and thoughts on behalf of those who have been affected, victims, and those who were at the scene in the library, and our appreciation to all those emergency responders. So I just wanted to just take a few moments and acknowledge that. And if we could just have a moment of silence for about 5 seconds, I think that'd be great. Thank you so much. Nothing will obviously fix that terrible, tragic situation, but I just wanted to acknowledge something that is obviously on everyone's minds here in the town hall tonight and throughout our town. So in any event, there's obviously no suitable transition from that, but it is important to acknowledge things that have such weighty importance. So thank you so much for bearing with us with that. So in any event, again, welcome to everyone who's here in Town Hall with respect to our meeting. We do have an agenda, and we're going to try to stick with the agenda. We don't have our town planner tonight. He has a personal issue going on. Everything's going well, but that he had to take care of. So, and we're very grateful for one of our planning board members, Deb Jarius, who's attempting to take over the role of helping us with the Google Maps, because it always helps illustrate particular locations that we're talking about. So in any event, the first item that is on our agenda is the Center Business District Rotary properties, and we're very grateful to have someone in the audience tonight who's been willing to come before our board and just have a conversation with us about it. So John Moriarty, if you could please come to the table, we'd be so grateful. So
Your choice.
Or elbow room.
So,
Plenty of room.
yeah, so John Moriarty, thank you so much. Always welcome to have a dialogue and a conversation with the planning board. We very much respect the fact that you're taking time from your supremely busy and professional schedule as well as your personal time to come before the board. And so we'll be quick, and we just, first of all, really wanted to underscore, if there's anything that we take away tonight, is how much we appreciate your coming tonight. So I hope that'll be crystal clear.
No, we're happy. It was had a very nice conversation with both the planner and with town manager about this starting, I guess, right after we bought the property.
Yeah, okay, and so we'll get to that in just one second. I just also wanted to acknowledge on behalf of the board, a few things that we were just talking about, the music school. We're well aware, but maybe not aware of everything, but we certainly appreciate all that you've done for Winchester, the town of Winchester, in so many ways.
Appreciate
You
that.
personally as well as your family, and I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. I was previously on the community music school board, and everything that you have done for that organization is truly phenomenal and helped create really a very cherished town asset.
It was a wonderful sense of community that pulled it all together.
Yeah.
And
But I just wanted you to know how much we
Well, thank you.
respect you and all that you've done, your commitment to Winchester. That Winchester is a better place because of many of your efforts.
Well, thank you. That's
And
very nice.
so please don't ever think that we don't
Yeah,
we don't know
I
that.
don't think that.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
funny, because I have many opportunities to build and develop all around New England and actually down to Miami. And I never do anything in town, almost on purpose, because I live here, you know. And so I could tell you the quick story about how these two parcels came up and why I bought them and what my thinking has been and what it continues to
that'd
be.
be great.
Is that
And
an easy way to
Can I
start?
just
And then you can
interrupt
ask.
for you
Yeah.
real quickly and just say, we also wanted to acknowledge and thank you for the, I don't know what the right verb is, but the renovation, the historic renovation of the building that you've
Yeah.
done, that did come before this board, I think about a year ago or so. It was obviously, an older building and therefore one that is very special and
Mm-hmm.
treasured by the planning board as well as many other groups and organizations and people in town. And the fact that you embraced that project and helped give it more life was certainly something that was not lost on us and that we
Thank you.
appreciate.
That was another one of those things where we got great help from the board. We got great help, local architect, who helped us through it. And he did a great job and, pushed us, as they're supposed to, a little bit further than we maybe wanted to be pushed on some things, but I think the result is great. And we have a small piece of retail space on the first floor that we've held off the market. I've been called by half a dozen people because I don't really know whether we need it yet as JMA. And also, I don't know what the right fit would be, and it kind of a little bit ties in what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay, great. Well, so just sort of jumping, so we do want to talk about the Rotary properties and sort of the current use and that sort of thing, but, obviously, I know you don't have a lot of time, and unfortunately, we have an
Right.
agenda, but we couldn't help, sort of connecting a few dots of the fact that you have done so much in town, that your business and your profession is obviously, a very successful, I don't even know what you call it, development
You're more of a contractor.
company. Yeah, and so we were kind of curious if there's sort of thoughts that you've kind of like considered about development in town, if that might be one of the reasons why you were kind of had purchased these properties. But in general, as you're probably aware, we're a special permit granting authority for the Center Business District. Town meeting did pass a whole new set of bylaws that, and the if you will, the planning board's like the ZBA for the town
Right.
center. And of course, as you may be aware, there's sort of a planned unit development area that's PUD 3, we call it, that actually sort of stretches down
Right.
Main Street from one of the parcels that you own near the railroad tracks. So if you don't mind us just kind of asking, just in
Sure.
general, if you've kind of given thought to sort of some sort of vision about your investment there, about future
Yeah,
development.
I'll give you I don't have I certainly did not buy it with a grand plan. I've had my business in Winchester Center for 33 years. I have 500 employees, 200 of which are in the Boston market, and about 35 or 40 work in our offices at Church Street, and, on 3 Church Street. We own the Winchester Pharmacy building. We have office space on top of that. And for a long time, we had office space on top of the Santander Bank for like 20 years. And they became almost impossible to deal with as a landlord. They're managed by a company out of Texas, and so you couldn't really talk to anybody. And, you know, I tried to buy the building, I tried to, you know, modify the lease. I mean, I needed backup generators, I mean, all kinds of stuff, very hard. So finally, when we bought the building on Park Street, we said, well, let's just move our accounting department over there, and we'll fix that building up and make that nice enough and comfortable for accounting. We'll get a few more conference rooms there. But we still have this problem of 35 people, and plus the people that come and go, because we're in the construction business. We have, you know, I don't know, 150 people that are working around the town as staff people, you know, plus another 100 laborers and carpenters or something like that, and that are in and out of this area working on the jobs in town, and in Boston, I mean, not in town, and Boston and Cambridge, and primarily, although a few other places. And so, you know, parking has been a horrendous problem for us for 33 years. We have...
Right, you know Winchester well, you know its limitations.
Oh, it's, I mean, I understand the problem.
As well as its beauty.
Yeah, I understand the problem. And I originally didn't buy the two gas stations with a plan at all. I'll tell you exactly why I bought them. I was approached by the DeBarkley family. They said they were going to market the gas station, they're going to put it on the market, they're going to go out of the gas business, the fuel business, and they were going to ask what I thought was a ridiculous price, and I said, well, I'll take them. I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do with them, but I will close immediately. I did not want them to be on the open market, and I didn't want to get into any type of a bidding war with a major national petroleum seller who might say, well, you know what, this is a great market, and it's zoned for this, and they can do it. So I bought the two, and we had a very quick closing, and I bought them originally in, I think I bought them personally, and then we transferred them to John Moriarty and Associates, as most of the property that we own is. And so once I did that, and the town manager, Richard was made aware of it, he came over to see me, and he said, I'd like to talk to you about, you know, not doing anything for a while until we can figure out whether or not we should have an exit ramp from the train
MBTA
platforms.
station, yeah.
And I said, well, I've got a lot of experience with the MBTA because I'm building a couple of projects where we interface with them. I said, and you and I don't have lives that are long enough to get to the end of that process. And so he said, well, I know it's a frustrating thing and everything, and would you consider coming to a meeting with us? I said, because I'm happy to sell you back whatever you need for this. I mean, I don't have a plan, so it's not going to affect my plan. And the assumption that we can work together to get a plan that works, and it's better for the town, it's great.
Yeah.
So he called me maybe a month later, sent me some drawings, and now I'll put in perspective, to put this in perspective about my work with the MBTA, is that we were going to do the Copley Plaza, 60-story building on top of Copley Plaza,
yeah.
which after spending $34 million in 9 years, the Simon property walked away because they couldn't get to an agreement with the Department of Transportation. I've been working on this for 7 years. We just started the Fenway Center project, which is another air rights project with John Rosenthal, great guy, that's taken years and years and years, for him 11 or 12 years to get through a process and to get the agreement with the MBTA. So I had a meeting with Secretary Pollock to say, you know, the process isn't working in the private sector. It might be working for the public sector, but it's not working in the private sector. And we have somebody like Simon walk away from a project. That's a very bad omen for people coming to Boston to invest. And I said, and that's the message, is don't bother, because they'll never approve anything. So I had this great meeting with her, and she was wonderful and brought the right people, and we got the right people from our shop and from other shops in together, and we came up with a process, and that's why the Fenway Center we recently broke ground there. And this is the first air rights project that's happened since basically Copley Place, which was in 1980, right? So 37 years to get the next one to happen. And there's a few more that are coming. So I've been involved with this process and see how complicated the process was. So at that point, Richard called me up and he said, I'd like you to come to this meeting. And I said, well, I can't, I'm going to be out of town, but I'll come to the next one. He said, oh, so you can come to meeting like 136. I said, do you get my point? You're having the 136th meeting. Does that register with you?
Right, with the MBTA.
That you've got nothing to do yet,
Yeah.
and we're on meeting number 136. Do you understand my level of frustration in trying to do this? He said, oh, I get it completely. So I said, well, we'll do whatever you want to do. So let's wait and see if it makes sense to meet, or let's wait if you come up with a plan that works. He said, I don't think there's going to be any funding for this. I said, well, I'm perfectly happy to be completely transparent about what we paid for this and how we could apportion however you would pay for it. I don't need to make 10 cents on it. It's not my intention to make money on it. I didn't buy it because I'm trying to flip it. And so if, in fact, this works and you need a piece, we'll divide it up and we'll do it on a pure square foot basis. We don't need to go through a lot of rigmarole. The other sellers were interested in getting paid basically what I paid for the whole property. So he said, that's great, that's all I need. I don't need to bother you or anybody else anymore. If it comes back and it's it might happen, then we'll talk to you about trying to get it resolved. And if it isn't, then we'll let you know. Well, he told me maybe 6 weeks ago, or maybe 2 months ago, but going forward with the original plan, there's no money available to either take land or to redesign.
Right.
I said, that's fine. I said, I get that. They get this much invested in it. Let's keep it moving. We need to replace it. It's a danger to the public. Great, no problem at all. At the same time, or similar to that time, he talked about, well, people are very upset that you're parking cars there under the new ordinance. You can't park cars there. And I said, well, my option is I'll open it as a gas station, and it was a gas station. It is a gas station, and I don't think you want it open as 2 gas stations. He said, well, what are your real plans? So I came clean with him, as I'm a very straight guy, a very simple guy. I said, well, I've talked to, my objective is, in the long term, I said, I've talked with Steve that owns the Greek Grill, who owns the property all the way to the end, and the land behind it. And I said, and Steve has agreed with me that we will figure out how to make a deal when the time comes that his leases have expired with his existing tenants, which basically run about 5 years, and I don't know, I haven't seen the leases, and I don't know whether they're good or bad leases, and I don't know whether they have the rights to extend. I don't know whether or not, I don't know what their rights are, but we both agreed that that would be the right timing for Steve due to his age, and for me, where we would try to take all of that and come back with a plan, the ultimate plan being retail on the first floor, figuring out what to do about parking, using the parking behind, and maybe some, what I think is necessary downtown, which is some high-end rental residences that there aren't enough of.
Every time I look at you, John, I can't help but also see this esteemed architect behind you, Dennis Corleone. I don't know if you know him, but he was involved.
We have mutual friends.
Okay, but he was involved in helping us design some of the configuration in Town Center and also the PUDs, and he's done a lot of visual renderings that have been just like so inspiring with such great vision.
Yeah.
And so this is just like this beautiful moment where you're both here, and it's like, it's kind of amazing, truly. Yeah.
So my scheme was that I would have that property and the property across the street, and I've tried a number of times to get in touch with the people that own the little white building that has the
The music.
music. And I think that's more complicated than it seems, but at some point, there was an issue of selling and tax burdens and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, with both of those properties, then there's no reason to connect them. I mean, they exist there are properties that I would want to see connected to make a better result. So I said to Richard, I said, I can't promise you anything. I said, but, my goal would be to build something there that was, appropriate, 2.5 stories, 35 feet. I mean, I think the job that was done across the street on the other side, the condos that are there. The
Oh,
condos
Winchester
are
Place?
Winchester Place condos.
Yeah.
I don't know what they
By
call
the
those.
train track,
Yeah, I mean, that was a wonderful job, extremely well done. The units are terrific.
Converse Place.
Converse Place, I think
Yeah.
that's right. And I said, and I think that we need rental, high-end rental rather than low-end rental. And I think we need almost that level of quality that was done in those condos, which I think is exceptional for when it was done.
Yeah. And you're aware of the whole second floor reconfiguration above Brugger's?
Yeah.
And that the zoning allows, basically residential development and the idea
Right.
with the retail on the first floor.
Right.
et cetera.
It takes a whole bunch of things, to make that happen. So what I said to Richard was that, he said, well, will you guarantee you'll do that in 3 years? And I said, well, I can't guarantee anything, but I said, I'll guarantee, if you'll guarantee the interest rates, I'll guarantee I'll do it. And he said, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, of course not. Of course not. I said, yeah, exactly. I said, but, if the time is right and Steve is right, Steve and I have talked about how you would structure a deal that seemed to work for him and how I could buy him out. He could be in it, he could be in it in a big way, he could be in it in a small way. We'd have appraisals, so there wouldn't be questions about value. I mean, there's a lot of things to make the deal work. And he seemed comfortable with working with me. Full disclosure, I think his son now works for me, and that was not part of that discussion. But Jordan, I think, came to work for us because he was friends with another boy about his age who went to Winchester High
Yeah.
and who was working for us, and he took him on a day of, following around, and they decided it's nice, so now he's working for us. So that was that side of the story for that side of the street, and so that can't be complete in my mind until Steve's ready to give it up.
Right.
And you can make a deal that works with the combination of two things, really. You have to pay for the value of that the value of that building as it exists as an income-producing thing, and that then has to be converted to land value. And the only way you get that to work is by getting the additional density of more than one floor. That additional 2 floors, or floor and a half, provides the density that makes up for the
Have
land
you,
value.
and I'm not quizzing you at all, but I'm not, we sort of feel a little bit of a pride about this, the Center Business District zoning, and we had wonderful consultants, including Dennis Carlone, helping us to kind of create a lot of vision and to allow for the development and at certain heights and that sort of thing, and.
Well, we're not asking,
this
we
is a
wouldn't.
No,
yeah,
I know, but
yeah.
this is it's a particular core of the Center Business District that, there's a lot of interest in developing that economically and to help with the vitality of town center, get more
That's right.
people on the street,
That's right.
foot traffic, using all those retail establishments. Obviously, the proximity to transit is
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal, so,
It's a beauty and a curse.
So let me jump in, because I haven't said anything.
Yeah.
I just don't know where we are collectively, but have you actually seen, no, I'm not looking at that. I'm
Okay.
talking about where we are, like, understanding. Have you seen we have guidelines, regulations in addition that are.
But it's way too
specifically-
early for me to even care about them. I can't do anything right now.
yeah.
Sort of, but I don't see that there's a conflict, so that don't misunderstand me, but that there is a vision, and at least it's a starting point. So as you're talking even to Steve or I know it sounds like the Park Street, it's a street? I know we've been
It is
in
Park,
these
yeah.
different parks in
I know,
Winchester.
that's right. That is Park Street, I think.
That property owner, I am actually kind of curious what because I have no idea what's going on there except the little rental
Yeah.
right now. But we do have these visions that, again, Dennis actually generated and that we responded to, and it would be probably helpful to know if the vision coincide, if you,
Well,
maybe, let me.
I think it's, the concept is in accordance. I'm not trying to build a 5 or 6 or 7-story building. I'm not trying to, my style is to start on an as-of-right basis and see if that works economically. And as we invest our own money, it's not that we're just bringing in some insurance company's money. They might be.
Just since you use the phrase as of right, there's actually basically nothing you
Well,
probably would do.
let's
that's
say,
as of right.
well, I would disagree with that in that if you meet every single guideline and it's
Oh,
turned
well,
down, then we're gonna have,
Right,
I'm just
okay.
gonna spend
But
$20 million
legally,
fighting
that's
you,
not
so.
considered as of right.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah,
It's a permitting process.
Yeah.
so,
And everything I do, every building I do in Boston is over 50,000 square
Right,
feet.
right.
So every single building that we do, it goes before the BPDA.
Right, right.
We
Yeah,
have
no, I just-
$5 or
I'm
$6
sorry. Just
billion
when you said
worth
as
of work
right,
going on,
I-
so.
I think more the tenor of Maureen's comments, and I don't mean to jump in, but maybe that you might be delightfully surprised to see what our bylaws actually are now.
Oh, no, I've
Because
read
we
them, I just
really-
don't.
Yeah, we
this-
really are trying to encourage economic development, and that's actually PUD 2, and down, that's called the North Core. And so if you haven't had one of your assistants look at it in a while, that you might want to have them look at it, because what you're talking about is something that we, and, with the benefit of consultants, really try to focus on that would help something happen. So,
I'm just going to give you 2 examples of that, and I don't want you to take this in any way negatively, but I'll give you 2 examples of this. One of the first buildings I did was a building in Stamford, Connecticut, 1055 Washington Boulevard, which was a 320,000 square foot building for a guy named Bob Elder, who many of you might know. He ran CCNF for years, and he was Jerry Hines' first partner. And they had a design requirement for retail as a certain percentage of the front door along the street, and the number was 80%. And so, and the way the setbacks worked and everything, and this was designed by Stubbins, so this was not
Actually.
Joe Jerk. This was I think this was I think they were gold medal winning architects. So we sat down at the meeting, and Bob said, "Well, make that retail strip." And there was a parking garage that was part of the building that was attached to it in the back. And Bob said to the architect at the time, who was actually, I think it was it Bob Green that was the president of Hugh Stubbins at that point in time? He said, "Make that 10 feet deep." He said, 10 feet deep? That won't work. You can't sell anything in retail in 10 feet deep. He said, of course not. We're never going to sell anything. It'll never attract a person. The zoning believes that there's going to be retail happening there. It's not going to be happening there. This is a guy who developed the Galleria in Houston, so he did have some idea what he was talking about. He said, the only thing we're ever going to sell there are Cokes and newspapers. because nobody's gonna come to this building and go to that spot because of where it is. And he was right, absolutely right. We built that building in 1984. And we built it so that you could take space from the garage, which was attached to it, and if there was a retailer that really wanted to be there and wanted to be 30, or the magic number was 80 or 100 feet deep back then, you could put them in, but it never occurred. It's been 35 years. So the second example of all the best planning in the world that doesn't work is the Navy Yard, where there's been a requirement for the last 35 years that all first floor uses be places of public accommodation. It's all empty. It's been empty for 30 years.
Yeah, well, so we don't have any of those. What we really tried to do was
Oh, so
have,
my point
is to make this very developer-friendly as well, you know, kind of maintaining the character of our town center. So all I wanted to say was just that if you haven't had an assistant look at it in a while, we're hoping that they might be pleasantly surprised to see that
I think
it's
everybody's
very
pleasantly surprised. I
pro-development.
mean,
Yeah.
the question will be, if the deal works with Steve, that's a different plan than if the deal doesn't work with Steve. If Steve calls me up any day and says, you know, I've decided I want to keep this building in my family
Yeah.
for the next 30 years, then we're done. I'm not going to last another 30 years, so that's not going to happen. If Steve says, geez, I'd like to get negotiating this so I know how to plan this with my tenants, then we will do that immediately.
Right, okay.
With that piece of land altogether, I think we can achieve the vision that the planners had in making a strong statement there as you come around the Rotary and being flexible, and we'll figure out how to do parking. I don't think we want to do anything underground there, is my guess, but we'll have the parking from Steve's land behind.
Right.
Maybe
There
that'll
is
make
kind of
up, and,
deep-
you know, that'll be close enough, and maybe it'll be time for some stackers or a level of a deck. I don't know. But my point is, I didn't buy it with any plan. I bought it to park cars on it and to control it.
Right,
That was my
okay.
thing.
Well, so this has been great, and thank you so much for being positive about, you know, just our kind of hope that what we've worked so hard on would be something that creates the environment that is appealing for a development, particularly along that, what we call the North Core, and that PUD 2 area. But, so I guess more immediately, and just, you know, so that we don't rob you of too
Yeah.
much of your personal time tonight.
Or
so-
anybody else that's here.
So we do have this kind of like issue currently. So, you know, we totally have so much respect for you and your business and everything that, you know, may be a future kind of vision that, you know, maybe comes to fruition, that sort of thing. So please don't ever think that we don't. What we have, though, is this sort of situation with the Rotary where we're just, you know, trying to figure out what is our job here. We're supposed to be, in a sense, kind of like, you know, taking care of this whole town center. That's our job, and in a lot of ways. And so then we have these zoning bylaws, and I, you know, you guys might have a, you know, we respect the fact that you may have a different interpretation of them. Obviously, that happens all the time. So in your case, there's like kind of two parcels, you know, one's near the railroad track and the other one's closer to your building. And, I mean, and, you know, we totally appreciate the fact that you have this great business and there's a parking issue. So, but obviously that's been something that you've had to suffer through for a while, and it's a issue with a lot of businesses in our town, obviously, and it's very unfortunate. And there's a lot of different things I think that the Board of Selectmen has done over the years to try to reconfigure parking, that sort of thing. You may or may not be aware that I think employees who work
Oh, yeah.
in Winchester Center for $10 a year can park anywhere for free, pretty much. So, so there's some things that the town, you know, with the limited resources has tried to do, but, one of our concerns is just that right there, the bigger parcel right at the Rotary in particular, where it was a gas station before, not a parking lot, it's actually in a very visible part of town as
Oh,
well.
no question.
You know, and I know you clearly have such an appreciation for the town overall, but also the town center, or you wouldn't have invested so much in that building on Park Street and done such a gorgeous job. So we're just kind of, you know, we don't go out of our way normally to have, you know, sort of conflicts about
Right.
zoning. But in this particular instance, where there's so many cars parked there during the day, it's a very visible area of the Rotary. It's,
So if the alternative is it's just asphalt, I mean, if I tell nobody to park there, do you think that is a significant betterment over people parking there?
well, I guess it's kind of two things. One is the visual, and two is just compliance with the bylaw. And as far as the bylaw, as you know, kind of like, you know, typically, towns or cities or whatever have to uniformly enforce their zoning laws. So, so it's kind of like two pieces there. So I
So-
understand what you're saying. Asphalt isn't so attractive either, although some people might think that it's, less unattractive than a lot of cars where that wasn't the case previously. But the other issue is just that if the law is there, how do we kind of like selectively not kind of indicate that there's an interpretation that it's not being complied with? So, we just wanted to have kind of a conversation with you about it. Like, what's your view that,
Well,
is your view that you can park there, or what? I mean, we're
I
not putting
haven't-
you on the spot, we just kind of
No, I
want to have a
haven't, I
conversation.
mean, again, I bought something that was a current use and
As a gas station.
as a gas station. And I'm happy to sell it to a gas station company that puts a gas station back, in which case you'll have to fight with them about whether or not they have that right. You can enforce your laws, and I don't want to fight with mobile,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, I mean, we don't look for.
No, and I'm just
for
trying to say,
conflicts
so.
Anyway, it's not
so-
really our makeup.
Oh, I get
either.
it, and I don't mean that, in the way that it might have sounded. What I mean is that if I can't use it for the current use that I have, I mean, it's no different than any parcel of land in Boston, where it takes, I just explained, 5 to 7 to 10 years to get something approved. If you want to enforce zoning today that doesn't work, or doesn't make any sense, or can't be done because it's in somebody's vision, and I don't care whose vision it is, that's a different set of rules. And if you want to do that, then we'll just prepare for a fight.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean, the
and I'll have
vision is
one.
the law, though. It's
It-
not,
but the law is going to be enforced by a judge,
right.
and it's going to go to the state Supreme Court before I give up. So as long as you want to put aside $1 million a
Well, that's the
year,
other
I'll
thing.
put
We don't
aside
wanna
$1
have
million
an
a year, and we'll get to a finish
Yeah.
line.
And we don't want to have an adversarial relation,
No.
we think everything you've done in town is
Well,
phenomenal.
and I don't mean it that way,
So,
but,
yeah,
but so,
you know.
so my point is really very, very simple. I have a long-term vision and plan, which I think is consistent with yours, and and the town's, and which I think can work when and if that other building is available. Nothing works on that 3,000 square foot parcel, other than parking cars on it right now.
The bigger one, right?
Yeah, the one next to the T's, next to the.
Oh, next to the railroad track, yeah.
That's actually, I don't know which one's bigger, they're both about the same. So nothing works because of the shape of that, other than
We
parking
understand.
by people who don't have to follow any rules and don't have to pay anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're all my employees. It's completely open for the general use by the public. Anybody that when the lot across the street is full at Brugger's, or at the dentist's office, the nail office, or Steve's, or on Saturday when there's a town, what's the
Oh, town market, yeah.
farmer's market.
yeah.
We don't restrict anybody from parking there, ever. There's never been a sign up, we've never asked anybody to move their car, okay? So it's open for public parking. So I've waited for 34 years for the town to do something about parking for my employees, and I'm one of the bigger employers in the town.
Yeah, and we want employers.
And my option is that if I can't make it as convenient as possible, I mean, I think we're all aware of the competition for talent in Massachusetts right now. I don't need to be fighting for my employees and to have them have hassles about this stuff. And it's nice to say they can park 3 blocks away for $10 a year. So obviously, it's not about the money, when I paid what I paid for this land, which is $3.4 million. So, my point is, if you can live with that we are in agreement about what the ultimate plan will be, and when that ultimate plan can possibly be started,
Yeah,
and I'd be happy to spend the time and money now, if Steve is willing, to kind of come up with a plan that we try to engage in, to agree that that would be the thing to do when his leases expire. The deal won't work with Steve if what we have to do is accept all of those people, relocate them, and then put them back at the rents they're paying today. That's not gonna happen, okay? So what will work is a new building with new structure, without those tenants, with their leases expired, and a couple of levels of some sort of residential stuff on top. And I don't know what,
yeah.
okay? I don't think it's the same stuff as our neighbors that, are doing over Brugger's. I think it's a different product.
Well, I know we appreciate that, because they were just kind of, obviously, had a limited sort of
Envelope.
kind of view on what that plan was.
Yeah.
They were just dealing with the second floor, but,
Yeah.
and not to pry whatsoever, but is it your view that there aren't other parking options, like whether it's part of Winchester Savings Bank or behind Steve's lot? I mean, is that why you're coming to sort of this, your current reality of that you need to use this space? Or is that, we're not prying, this is sort of more
No, but I mean,
rhetorical, but I mean, are you feeling
parking
like
is so
are there no
precious.
other options, like even
I
behind
found none.
Winchester? Okay.
Now, if the town says to me, you get, I don't know, roughly 30 cars in there, on a very busy day, usually something in the mid-20s, I would say, somewhere like that. If the town says, well, if you'll do this, this, and this for the next 5 years, we'll wait this, we'll make a deal as a town with Steve and with the savings bank, and you can have 25 spaces back there, that's close enough for your employees. or if you tear down the building that's on that side and you can access it from behind, that would be great. But, you know, there's been nothing forthcoming. Again, I've been an employer here for 34 years. I got nothing.
And don't misunderstand us, we want you here, we want employers here. I mean, we
Yeah, no, yeah.
absolutely do. So it's just this kind of unfortunate situation where, and I understand the proximity, and that building that you're in now is just so gorgeous. I almost wish it could be seen more, because what you guys have done, it's just such a gorgeous building.
Well, the ideal plan would be, and actually, when the building above Brugger's was being done, I got a call from Tony, and he said, you know, if I add up all your space, it's equal to this floor. You should just buy this floor from me and put your offices over here, and that could free up the other space. I said, well, that'd be great if I hadn't just done Park Street and spent, you know, $2 million or $2.5 million on it. I said, that would have been a great idea. I think we ended up with a better result in Park Street,
Yeah,
because
it's
I
a
don't
better
think,
building.
anybody would have taken that warehouse building and converted it to anything from a warehouse.
That's why truly,
Yeah,
you know, we're
so-
very sincere in thanking you.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, we had great help. We had great help. And I think we felt as if it was very cooperative. So, back to our issue here. I don't have control of either of the parcels adjoining which make these deals work. I've got, you know, I think I'm trying to count them up before I came here. I think there are 43 people whose permanent jobs on a daily basis, besides the people that come and go for JMA, which are, you know, many, many subcontractors, owners, customers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This has been a great solution for us for parking. We're busier than we've ever been. And I don't see that there's a solution, if the town has got some solution that they can offer me.
Yeah, no, I
And I'm not
understand.
afraid of paying for anything, okay? I'm not saying I need anything for nothing. But,
I was actually gonna ask this to the planning board, cause in the zoning,
Mhm.
parking for the North Court, which this is in,
Mhm.
it says only in the rear of the site or within the footprint of the building or a contribution to the parking fund, which wouldn't be, we don't set that fund, that would be set by the select board. That is another option, and that could be tied to that this is only in place, this option's only available for X period of time when you, and that you continue through. There's things that the select board can do in that negotiation for that fee
Mhm.
for using the parking there. The one thing I would love to see is some landscaping, some greenery on it.
Well,
Because
it's-
when you're not there, it is just asphalt, it is what you're saying.
And we were gonna ask you about, like, if you have thought about or have any ideas, it doesn't have to be right now on the spot, but sort of, as Heather sort of pointed out, like screening or buffering or what
the problem
ideas.
is that,
It takes away
almost-
space.
well, there's two things. It makes the site, it makes it smaller, it makes the sight lines worse. I mean, the right answer is to tear down the buildings that are there.
Right.
And then figure out how to get the same number of parking spaces that are, you know, well disguised as parking spaces. That's a median solution but I'll tell you, you know, I've had two separate artists call me and say that would be, those garage spaces on both sides would make great artist presentation spaces. You know, that would be a nice addition for the town. I don't know that it really adds any commerce. You know, galleries have a very, very tough time making a living, no matter what kind of market, anywhere. I mean, on Newbury Street, they have a tough time. Now, that's because it's $150 a square foot. But I recently had a gal come to me and say that she'd like to put a bakery in one of them. And I said, well, you know, I think everybody, I don't know what kind of bakery it would be, but I said, almost everybody would like to have another bakery. We have some great bakeries in town, but that's one of those things, you know, that people.
Well, especially with more foot traffic and all
Yeah,
your
yeah.
employees and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so, you know, things like that can happen, but I'm not, you know, prepared until there's a plan that either we come to a decision or not a decision with Steve. If Steve says, John, this is when my lease is up, and if the town says, no, we need you to do something, we're gonna insist, and we're gonna try to enforce this, before that, because we've got this and it's been
I
passed.
meant revisit it, so like the
Yeah.
option to renew
Yeah.
and another contribution to the parking fund or something of that sort. But that would be set by us, so it's not something it would go to the select board for them to negotiate
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I made this comment to Richard, and I didn't know that he was behind it, but I said, who came up with the idea of the paid parking along, is that Laraway, or whatever the road is,
The
parallel?
select board.
What is the select board?
I said, you know, I said, just add it up, what do you make on it here, and send me a bill.
And it's like
Okay,
nothing.
Let
Yeah.
let me just pay for it, okay, because every customer that I have can't figure out how to use it. When they do figure out how to use it,
Yeah.
you know, if they figure out how to use it, they're upset.
Hassle, yeah.
And then they get a ticket when they come out, and they're mad, and I send somebody down to grab the ticket, and then we pay the ticket. And people don't park there, and not put money in it so that parking along in front of CVS and Starbucks gets worse because there's a lot of double parking there all the time now.
Yeah.
I think we have somebody who's going to be on the select board who might take that to the select
Actually,
board.
all of you, in fact, your experiences, or if you want to delegate this to one of your assistants to provide this input as an employer in town is very important to
Well, that was
make sure
part of
that
the
it's always
decision.
heard.
That was part of the decision for us when I bought them to just park there, was that prior to that, all of the transient JMA employees, the people that are out on jobs that come in to pick up a payroll or to drop off something or to bring drawings in or back and forth, or all of the subcontractors and many of the customers that we have that come back and forth to the offices, would always park there because there's almost never space in front, and it's
Sure.
20-minute and 30-minute parking in front of our office. If you talk to the bank, and I've been a director at the Cooperative Bank for 20 years, they're very worried about loss of
Right,
any
they
parking.
have no parking, yeah.
And they're very worried about loss of any parking, because it's a zoo out there. Saturday morning, if you've ever been, it's crazy.
That's actually.
So, and I've told them, just park there, park at our space if they need to. And so, but when that parking went away and became metered parking, and meant that there was another step in everybody's process,
know,
from
yeah.
running to DAGs, getting your hair done, which takes longer than that, right? Using any of the stuff on Main Street up to La Patisserie, the iStore, there are two other salons there.
Yeah.
If you go by that parking, you'll see that parking is empty or
And
partially empty
of
a
course,
large part of the day.
one of the concerns is they don't want people parking there and then taking the train and going into
Right.
Boston for like 5 hours. So they have to, I'm not defending it whatsoever,
that's right.
trust me, but it's a tricky balance, I guess, I don't know.
No, that's right, no, it is. And so by the same token, I used to have all of my field superintendents and project executives who, project executive had offices in Winchester, and field superintendent's offices are in the job, usually in Boston and Cambridge, and they go back and forth, right? But they might be in the office for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And usually the superintendent types are there for no more than an hour, there's a meeting, or maybe 2 hours. Once that parking was taken away, they had no place to go.
Right.
Okay? And so, I don't know how many spaces there are, maybe are there 50 or 40 or 50 spaces, you might know. That, for us, was a tremendous change, because all of our employees that now park in the 2 gas stations used to park up in the public lot here, the Jenks Center
Right.
lot,
Yeah.
or they parked it down by Stop and Shop.
So
because
does
it
the
was free parking.
Congregational Church allow, rent out that parking lot on the right side as you're looking up the
They're
hill
full.
of their
It's
church?
full.
Yeah, it's full, yeah.
It's full. In fact, it's overfull. It's overfull because of the use by the nursery school that's there. And that there's, if you want to talk about a dangerous place, that is a place that you want to have that cut off so that everybody there is aware of what's going on there. Because there are a lot of mothers getting out with little tiny kids, and often more than one. So they've got one they're getting out
Yeah.
and one in a car seat. And it's
Running
you
around,
really
yeah.
have to be careful. And all the people that park there, it's all Winchester Cooperative Bank people, and I have 2 spaces, Dave Leathers and I have spaces there that we pay for. And so we're all very aware of what's going on, and clearly all the parents that are dropping off and picking up.
You're phenomenally aware. This is
yeah.
very valuable to
Yeah.
us. But we're sensitive to your schedule tonight, and then we
Yeah, I'll
have
get
this
out of
agenda.
everybody's
But the takeaways here are, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come to the board. Second of all, we very much value your business being in Winchester, and so never think that we don't, not to mention all that you've done for the community. And I could say that all night because I personally know of a lot of what you've done, and it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you, but I don't want you to think that I
No,
come here looking for any special
No,
treatment.
I know you aren't, but
Okay?
I'm just saying, I want you to know that, and then, but moving on from that, we do appreciate your professionalism, your, work in the industry about development. That's why when you sort of are candid with us and say a few things, we really appreciate your giving us that information and the realities that you're working with and that sort of thing, but,
I'm happy I did this with a deal in Boston where there was a neighborhood that was concerned about a guy developing condos because they were concerned that the profit margin was such that they were really driving up prices, which was gonna mean that the people that lived there in rental property, their rents were gonna go up. It was a very legitimate concern. And so the developer, who's a really interesting character, said, look, I'm doing this to get a 6.5% cash-on-cash return. He said, if you think 6.5% is an outrageous return, then you're nuts. For the risks that I take, the capital that I tie up, he said, I'm not trying to do this and sell it at a 3 or 4 cap and make a fortune, and I'm not trying to make a 10 or 12 or 13% return on it. In my circumstance, there is no profit motivation.
no, we get, yeah.
I paid effectively $100,000 or $150,000 a space to park my own employees' cars that I'm already paying very well.
Yeah, that was definitely a reality that was
Yeah.
clear to me too, just by what you had to pay for
Yeah.
those lots, and, well, I guess we'll just kind of like keep, sort of looking at, what our bylaws are and have a continual conversation with you
A
or one
great
of your
thing to do
assistants.
would be to have the town planner,
Yeah, Brian.
I can never think of his first name,
Yeah,
and I
Brian.
can't say his last name, so that's
It was-
why.
yeah.
It's like Kelly.
Zagelli?
You just pretend like there's no S and it's just
Yeah.
a Z.
I saw it written yesterday and I practiced
Yeah,
and I still
yeah.
didn't, so I wasn't gonna try it.
Photo mirror.
Yeah, almost,
Emphasis is in the second syllable.
yeah. Zagelli,
Zakelli.
I got it,
Like a
thank you.
Z. It's as if it's a Z.
Is it Hungarian? Oh, yeah. He's got red hair, he's Hungarian?
Yeah, that's what he told us.
If the town could say, we think that this would be a good plan for this parking, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm not trying to preside that I've thought this out and everything, right? That we'd have access that goes in between the brick building and Steve's building to get into the spaces that are in the back. And we'd want you to tear down the building, the white
Yeah.
building there.
The gas station.
Which one? Yeah,
The music,
the gas
the
station, the
music,
gas station.
the music's,
He's saying.
No, the gas station, on that side of the street.
oh, right,
The gas
okay.
station. No, because I'll get to the other one in a sec. And then that would allow you to get access, and then we want to cut out this piece and, put 12 or 14 cars there, and the rest of that we want is greenery, or we want this, or we want that to be covered when you build something, and we want it to have a real facade. You know the garage, if you come into Harvard Square, it's the famous garage.
Ah.
It's got, you don't know it's a garage?
Definitely.
The garage.
Yeah.
That's an example, right? So but that's a plan where we would solve the parking need with access through there to get parking that would be fine for my employees, that would leave future development opportunity whenever it happened, okay? That's one.
Okay.
Option two is you really can't do anything on the lot across the street. I can tear down the gas station, because I don't use it for anything, but you really can't do anything with that until you have that other building, because of a combination. I mean, I either need to own it,
Right.
in which case I tear it down, but once I have a setback requirement, or I have the life safety separation of two, right, I gotta have a 30-foot separation, or I gotta make it a firewall. Most people don't like to look through a firewall, because it's block. And I think that scale-wise, that shouldn't be developed in any scale higher than the 16 Park Street building. It can only be that, whatever the zoning says,
Yeah,
it can't,
it's different on
Yeah.
each side of the street, has
Right.
different zoning.
right, and it should be, right? So, in order to make those things happen, we can look at those as two separate problems and two separate parking problems, and if the town has some ideas that they think might work for them in the shorter term, I'm certainly gonna look at them, I'm certainly gonna tell you if they work financially for me,
Yeah,
and I'm certainly gonna tell you if I can accomplish it.
okay.
If the town doesn't have a suggestion that helps solve my problem for my employees, then I have to wait until I can get Steve's land and access to Steve's land in the back, and make a deal and pay for his property, and either put him in the deal as whatever his contribution is financially. If his land's worth $5 million, it goes in, it's worth $5 million. And I'm happy to do any of those things if it proffers what you people feel is a better long-term opportunity and gets you into the planning early, so that you're not surprised by something that we put on the table. My wife and I bought the land for Concord Academy for their fields at Arena Farms.
Right,
10 or 15 years ago. And it was a farm, and it had been used as a farm for 150 years. And the Arena family decided they were gonna try to make it like Wilson's Farm, which they were not capable of doing. So they were in a bankruptcy, basically. And we went to buy that property for the school for use as athletic fields. It was zoned, and Concord's as tough as Winchester, it was zoned as farmland. And there's an ordinance in Concord that says that if you change something from farmland to a commercial use, you have to pay the taxes on it for the last 10 years, whatever the taxes would have been for the last 10 years. So it's a tremendous disincentive
Right.
for somebody to change something from farmland, which is important. So we went to the town, we tied up the land, called a local banker and said, we'd like to buy it, it's going into bankruptcy, we'd like to buy it and give it to Concord Academy. I said, but we have a problem, is that somebody's got to admit that we can use this land for fields as athletic fields
For a nonprofit, yeah.
for a nonprofit. Now, put this in perspective, the Dover Amendment says you can do anything you want.
Right.
Okay, so the town could just simply invoke the Dover Amendment and say, well, this is part of our program, and so we need to do it. We said, well, no, they're neighbors, we want to make everybody happy. Let's get the feel for this. We can't get this out there, that we're going to try to buy this, but let's get a feel for, does the town consider this a good use or a bad use? Because we don't need to be as donors, we don't need to be in a fight
Because
over
otherwise
this.
it would probably be developed as houses,
Oh, it'd be 300 units right now in a
Right.
heartbeat. Or it'd be a 40B and it'd be 450.
because it's a phenomenal location right around two,
Right.
yeah.
So we went to a few people that we knew in the town, and they said, well, let us do a little bit of homework, and there was a wonderful woman who worked for Epsilon, who's a consulting person, Peggy Briggs, and she said, well, yeah, let's figure out if the town thinks it's a good idea, and if the town thinks it's a good idea, then we'll do it. Town was concerned, they didn't want to lose the tax money, which made sense, and the town felt that they were concerned about where the bus traffic would be, so they wanted us to sketch out a plan that worked
Right.
for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We did that, everybody was happy with it, it was a great use for the town, best possible use.
Yeah.
You know, 6 tennis courts, a baseball field, a soccer field, a lacrosse field. Came out great. But that was because there was this underlying thing about, there's nobody trying to enforce something here, there's somebody trying to get to the best solution.
Yeah.
You might have had some great ideas,
Yeah.
and it might not work that, you know, when I got in this business, you could borrow 90% of the money to do a deal, right? So if you're doing a $100 million deal, you could borrow $90 million. Today, if you're doing a $100 million deal, you can borrow $58 million. That means you need $42 million in equity. It makes deals that much tougher to do, right? So, or you pay an enormous mezzanine debt rate. And so, you know, this is a little tiny deal that we would do ourselves, and if we were gonna have a bank, we'd have a local bank and all that. So I'm not trying to put it in that perspective,
Right.
but it has to work. I mean, I
I
didn't
understand.
do this, I did this at the end of the day because I wanted to control it.
Right.
Um,
So for our future discussion and
Yeah.
stuff, would it be through you or
Yeah.
one of your assistants? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our whole idea with doing this over the long course of time that it took
Mhm.
was to work out solutions and to help the economic vitality of the town. So, it seems like this is a really interesting situation and that there's a lot of, reason to try to, figure out
And it
something
could be a
that's gonna be a
great interim
benefit.
solution. I mean, if the town planner can come up with a decent interim solution that gets us parking nearby, that works so that we can make this, beautify this in some way. If it means we tear down the building, I don't care about the building. I don't have anything going on in the building. You know, I have a couple of partners that keep cars in there in the wintertime. You know, it doesn't matter. So we don't need that. That can come down. But the idea, the thought was, let's have a real plan that everybody says, that when I come to you and say, this is what I'd like to build and this is why, you say, God, that's gorgeous, it's in accordance with our plan. And these are the things we think you tweaked and we want to know why.
Right.
Why did you change this? And then we'd have a plan to go forward.
Okay. I think that we probably would let you go and get back to the agenda, but I think this has been super constructive, and we really appreciate your time. Does anybody want to mention anything else?
Could I
before
just
we-
suggest one thing?
Yeah,
Maybe I should hire somebody to do a plan of what I think works with Steve's land. I need Steve's approval and authority to be able to do anything, including his land, okay? So he might say, not yet, John, I'm not ready. I don't want my tenants nervous, I don't want that. He's such a straight guy, I can't imagine it would be, he's a wonderful person to do business with. And so I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to spend the time and the money to come up with a plan that we think is as compliant as we can be,
yeah,
so that we can say to you, this can happen like this in today's economic conditions. It can't happen till this date. Is this something that is gonna present a problem? Or is this something that really satisfies your needs? Right, because it might not be exactly
yeah, no,
compliant.
we'd love it.
If we do that, then we're both in
Be
good faith
fantastic.
operating to try to come up with a
Yeah, no,
solution.
that'd be great.
Even,
Yeah.
it all sounds good, but that person also, I think, I'm getting ahead here, but Dennis is here as it happens.
Oh, yeah, I know, of course he's got it.
He has
Yeah.
some major experience. in
Well, he'll know,
zones.
I mean, I always say the
He
difference
does
between,
talk in numbers per square foot
Yeah.
and so on.
the
cost
difference
per
is
square
that he knows what's in his head that isn't on the drawings yet, and I don't know that. And so that's
It's all
when we,
good stuff.
so when we talk with architects, we always say, well, I don't know what you're intending by this, but this is what we thought. And, no, that's not what I thought, this is, but we're not there yet, right? So I think maybe what we'll do is I'll talk with my guys my JMA guys, and we'll see if we can rekindle the team that did Park Street, because we know you ended up
Yeah.
happy with that
Very
result.
happy.
Phenomenal, yeah.
And see whether or not we can get a first pass at that, to maybe meet with you offline and see if we're getting to the right place. Because I think, if you think, and again, this is a little bit self-serving, but if you think that what I'm putting in front of you
Yeah,
and spending the money to do is a good long-term result,
yeah,
you're gonna be more flexible with me about when that happens.
right. Well, I mean, that's the idea, and also, honestly, your dedication and commitment to the town, it's like, if anybody's gonna be developing this stuff, if you would be involved in it, it would, given your track record and everything, would be, I think most people in town would just feel, really grateful.
There's a couple of people said
Honestly,
to me,
so-
we're one bad job away from
Well,
from a
aren't we all?
reputation, you know, so.
Aren't we all? But you have dedicated so much to the town, and you're very professional, and, you know, such a high level of workmanship, so,
Well, why don't we give us 2 or 3 months?
gotta go.
Why don't we give ourselves 2 or 3 months
Okay,
to hire somebody, get a first pass, have a meeting with you, and then we'll try to get, yeah, well, exactly, but then we'll get back on your agenda to see if we're going in the right
that'd be
direction.
fantastic.
And then at that point, if we're not going in the right direction, you guys say, John, this is great, but it's not going where we want it, and then we know that we've got to have another path.
Okay, John, thank
Is that
you
good?
so much for
Thank you,
coming.
thanks very much.
We
Thank you. Nice
were
to see
so
you.
appreciative. Thank you
No,
so
thank
much
you very
again.
much.
Okay, and say hi to your wife for us. Yeah, so I
I'd
think,
like to hear that he's building in town.
yeah, yeah,
That he's changing.
yeah.
We have to come to a decision as to whether we accept the 3-month offer.
Yeah, can we talk about it a little, like, go back to that, because we have Dennis here to talk about the,
We're half an hour behind.
can we talk about Highland right now, and then, yeah, okay. Plus, because we have some neighbors here and stuff like that, so,
No, I agree, we should
okay,
follow the
okay.
agenda because we're.
Dennis,
yeah.
you're up.
But you're right
Yeah.
about it.
So, but that was a good constructor. We're a little behind our, so would you mind trying to pull up Highland?
Actually, you know, if that's, if, I think that's appropriate, if she'd be willing to handle this.
Is what?
Maybe we can ask Beth to join us?
Okay, yeah, Beth, could you come up to the table? Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Brian's spot.
Beth, do you want to come? So now we're on Highland Avenue, and we're a little behind on the agenda, but that was obviously a, really beneficial and tremendous, discussion that we just had, so, and hopefully the town will ultimately benefit from that. So, we're just gonna try to kind of keep a pace with our agenda. So we're now on Highland Avenue, and, we're very happy to have Dennis Carlone here, so if you wanna come to the table as well, that'd be great. Yeah, if you can help us be the Google master on the maps. that would
I'm
be
not as
helpful.
much of a Google master as Brian.
Okay.
is.
I think I've gotten pretty
Skills
good at
are
it, but I don't have the
not as-
controls, so, but
You do
Jim's really
things
great at it
you
too. So Dennis, we'll be quiet if you wanna just take over. I think we've got some, are these from you?
They are, and I thought we could put them up there if that's in the system. I'm not sure.
Is it in the system?
I had asked Suzanne, well, I sent the file. We don't have to put them up there.
I don't have them electronically.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't even have a copy of that, but
Dave, can we
I can talk about it from my memory. So I think there's good news. I do a lot of public and private joint development analysis. In fact, everything we
Just so
did.
you know, I just texted Brian, and so hopefully if he emails this, we'll be able to put them up, but sorry to interrupt. But-
Well, if not, that's fine.
Okay.
I had sent them to Suzanne in the engineering office.
It's not legible. It's not.
Do you think you could get them from Suzanne?
I don't have access to our email.
Okay.
That's the site.
You're fine.
Okay,
Don't
Brian's,
close it.
Brian's gonna
It's
email
No,
them, but
it's not.
you can keep going, and
Okay,
as soon as
so,
he emails them, I'll send them to
What the
Dave.
first page,
The first page is a copy of not ours. It's a
They're
scan.
waiting.
Not ours, it's a.
I'll tell you, I'll slide
With
it.
Beth, maybe. Beth, you're on.
the first page is strictly the development proposal by Waterfield Design Group in November. And I used it as a basis, but there's a lot of information on here because it's based on a survey, a site survey. I was hoping to do this on the screen, but
He's gonna email them to me, so soon, hopefully we'll get them up.
But let's just say the site is not one gentle slope. It varies, you've all been there, you've seen it. But even on the developable portions, it varies quite a bit. Along Highland Avenue, there are portions that are relatively level. There are others that sink down. We've talked about that last time. And you can see where the contour lines, the dotted lines are close together. That obviously is hilly. South of the proposed road in this drawing is where the deep, steep
Email.
break is in the,
To you, too.
on the site. So what I did here in red was just show what we had talked about on the roads, that these are the alternates that you're going to see in the 3 site plans. One is a hammerhead
Yeah,
at the end instead of a cul-de-sac. And the other is moving the access road south so it can be perpendicular to Highland, but also give us a bigger site that's, I think, developable just north of it on Highland.
yeah, boy, just those two things alone make it better.
Well, yes, the hammerhead I'm not convinced of, as you'll see in a moment. But this site shows 6 developable private houses that Waterfield Design Group proposed, and I believe it's 8 affordable units. I think some of the affordable units are in locations that are difficult to develop. This is with the existing zoning, which is 15 feet, oh, thank you.
Which one is,
Yeah.
oh, this one, okay.
But even this is just the same thing.
No, this isn't his work.
This isn't my work.
This is just a starting.
doing the analysis. I'm fine. I look like I'm not.
No, it's,
You should be nervous.
if it were me, it would be on the floor by now.
So,
All right, we'll hear feedback after he finishes his presentation, okay?
so this drawing shows A, B, and C. A being the road shift, which you'll see.
Oh, right, yep.
In one of the options, 2 of the options. B, the hammerhead that you'll see in one, and C, a cul-de-sac. On the side, you'll see dimensions. I looked up the International Fire Code, and the original drawing has approximately an 80-foot cul-de-sac, and this is gonna be up to the town, because I understand there's nothing in the zoning that allows it, so this is part of the agreement. So any development, even if we stay on town land and the person who owns the right to the land north stays on their land, the road is a joint development. The cul-de-sac goes into town land, and then all the other options really go onto town land. So in a way, everything has to be worked together. So the International Code says the hammerhead, if it's perpendicular, has to be 120 feet long.
Have to take on the fire engines.
That's right. And the cul-de-sac is anywhere up to 96 feet. This shows 80 feet. Now, if the cul-de-sac were bigger and Waterfield's Design Group stayed on their property for the length of it, it goes into this property. That's not happening, obviously. And do we really want a cul-de-sac that close to somebody else's property? And that's where we got into the notion, maybe you remember Craig Harrigan from Beth's office.
Brian.
They're both
Brian.
Brian's.
Did I say
They're all
Brian's,
Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Brian suggested the road coming down south, and you'll see that we incorporated that. So here are the contours, and you can see that there's a lot of contours here, meaning steep hill, and it's flatter here and flatter as you go up here. Actually, the flattest part is the site that Diab had mentioned probably shouldn't get built on, and you'll see I have a response to that. So all the drawings have notes on the side. We don't need access to that. Have notes on the side, and I will go through those, but just for your reference. So we'll go to the next scheme. Well, the first scheme. That would be the next one.
Study 1.
Thank you. And maybe we could just reduce it a little bit. Oh, maybe not. That's fine.
Up to the top where it says 127.
There, you're perfect. Thank you.
I can.
You're done, don't,
So what this scheme is we were asked, so you notice I called the new road not knowing what to call it. New River Valley Way.
No pun
Because there's
intended.
Valley Road, there's River this. So I just made up, and this is the straight version. Obviously, it ends in a cul-de-sac. This is based on what Waterfield Design Group drew on the road. And so this is as of right. As of right in the sense that a 10,000 square foot parcel, you can build 4 private homes. This last, or the home closest to Highland, because of the shape of the site and the required setback, see this dotted line, it says A? That is the setback line. So this building can't really be like the other buildings that are proposed. And all I did on the public side was to max the number. You will see in the bottom right-hand corner in red, it says 4 private homes and 10 to 12 affordable. This would be the most affordable units.
This option is the most affordable unit.
Yes.
And they're all on town land, it looks like, too.
And you will, they're all townhouses, they're similar to what I showed you last time in the designs I've done elsewhere. And the vernacular is very much like the community, maybe these a little more historic than some of the newer houses, but very simple, but agreeable and fitting in. So each of these are 2 families, that's why you'll see 1 to 2. This is 11 to 12, the unit 11, and at the other end where the town owns the biggest piece of land that is developable, and here are the issues. There's a 200-foot riverfront distance back from the river. You can only go so much into that riverfront area. It's actually 10% of the land you own. This works. Parking, however, juts in. Do you remember last time I said it isn't just the building sites, the parking is going to eat up a lot. But I wanted to show what could happen. So, questionable location for an affordable unit is right here only because of discussion we had last time. So you will see in every drawing I show you that whatever's at this location is questionable.
Yeah, I saw
It's
that.
up to
So
you.
what's the answer?
And what I've done here is tried, because these affordable units are at the end of the cul-de-sac, is to try to have a density and a number of units that create some form of a community.
Yeah, good.
If you didn't have building C, for instance, this is sort of floating out here by itself. Now, you could say, you know, nature's here, and that's enough. So I'm showing that. So there's 4 here and 4 here, that's the 8. This unit, on every drawing, you will see I have a note that basically says, I'm not sure this one can be built. It's here
Great change
because
down.
the chair of the board said, I think we should put one there. So I'm
Or the
saying,
road, right,
I'm
okay,
saying if we can, we can.
yeah.
The engineering department, this is where the land slopes
Yeah,
off, you
so-
know it.
Well, there's also the culvert that goes
that's right.
out.
Yeah, it avoids the culvert, but it's this, if you're gonna build up 5 feet or so of earth, and then you have this, the edge of the ravine, I'm concerned about that working. And you'll notice, so this is the edge of the ravine. It's also approximately a 25-foot wetland buffer line. You can't build within that. So
Dennis,
you-
where's the current house? The,
Right.
oh, it's same footprint?
It's underwater right here.
Okay, but same footprint, okay.
Yeah, and what there, I'm assuming we will build up because
Yeah.
we have more distance to work with.
Okay. Like stilts or whatever.
Yeah, no.
I don't know what you call that,
I would put it
but-
on earth, on
Okay.
fill.
Oh, I see, so sort of
So-
have the
so
land
the
come up,
water doesn't
yeah, yeah, okay.
get there as much. So you notice I'm going into some detail, I realize that, but there's no backyard terrace. It's on the side here. All the others are behind, which would really be quite wonderful. Now, because of the parking dilemma, these 2 on Highland, the parking is on the street. There is parking on the street. But the only way that's going to work, I believe, is if it's permit parking. That town owns the land, and actually it adds to some of the street parking. I believe it doesn't go down quite as far as that now.
And that's because it's basically in a floodplain?
Yeah, that's part of it,
So
and
it's not
just,
a mapped floodplain?
No, I know, I just been,
and the more you put on the land, the more difficult it's gonna be dimensionally. This is not a huge dimension. And if you look at, I won't go back to the previous drawing, but the way, his proposal to lay out the parking, it's right on the edge, and
And we couldn't just do a macadam to do just macadams instead
That's
of doing the street parking, we can't do that, or?
like a
well,
gravel kind of? Is that
No,
what you mean?
You can
asphalt
do-
pads on the
you can
front.
do what you
Yeah, the
want.
parking off the street.
Now, if I remember correctly, this is macadam right here.
Yeah.
is a base, I don't think this is the best scheme. It's the base of, let him have his, and we'll work with what we have, and the combined effort will be on the road. That's really what this is.
So what's the width of the road that you have?
Uh,
One of my questions.
It's 24 feet, I
So you
believe.
can do parking on one side of it,
No, not on this one.
on the other?
On a later scheme, you'll see that
Yes, I saw
Heather,
it.
I do the same thing I did here. I add sort of parking on the side, but it goes into the yard.
Yeah, I
You'll
saw
see
it,
it in
yeah.
a second.
Yep, yep.
So, let's see if I missed anything.
So this one is currently to the zoning as it is currently written?
For him, it's, I believe everything else is fine, except
The cul-de-sac.
the setbacks, this is tighter than the required setback. Assuming this is all zoned the same.
And in this scheme, what are the sizes of these units, square
So-
footage?
So
The houses and
these
the-
are average 950.
Each one of them?
Yeah, so it's actually 9 and 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
One's a 2-bedroom, one's a 3-bedroom.
Okay,
As a prototype.
Yeah.
And, you know, you might change the ratio. These are pretty much, this is identical on the private side to what the proposed developer had put forth. I believe it's 1,400 square feet on one level, and then I assume it's doubled up above. But I just used his square footage. I used his driveway layout, even though I think it's tight, but I'm sure he'll figure that out. So here you can see some parking cut into the road. Maybe that's what you were mentioning, Heather. Again, to take the burden off of this. If anything, the parking area, although it's legal, we're not using more than 10% beyond the 200 feet, we're in the woods. And I'm not crazy about that, but it shows what you can do. On the other hand, oh, it looks like I left a mark on the screen, I'm sorry. On the other hand, these backyards are spectacular, views everywhere. And this ravine, as you know, this really does express the edge, and everything slopes down. And part of the thing that I wanted to do was to keep this open to some degree as you're driving by.
Oh, to have the view, yeah.
But even when you're coming into this site, it's not just the private houses, it's who's ever on this road going to their homes. It's pretty spectacular. So the next one,
Dennis,
yes,
would
yeah.
it be possible to add some parking here to remove some of the pressure here?
Yes, I would say it is, but this is the stay on your
This
own
is,
property.
okay, got it.
You're right. You know, in a cul-de-sac, if it's fire access dimensioned, yes, people park, but in fact, at this size, you probably can't park in a cul-de-sac at 80 feet. That's why some are really big, they're like oversized, so people can park 90 degrees. But yes, that would be obvious. So the obvious thing here is to maintain this openness. It's not big enough for a house site. He can only fit 4 houses on the property with the road on his property. The road really can't go further south because of the contours in this area. They're very steep. So this portion of the road is pretty much fixed. So we'll go on to the next one.
And my last question on this
Yes, Heather,
scheme,
sorry.
is the cul-de-sac, does it have to be all asphalt, or can it also have a island in it to help block the
Well,
view from the house?
The truth is, I wanted to draw an island, but
To make it bigger?
that's up to the fire department.
I think
Yeah.
they'd have to run the turning templates to see
Yeah,
what
but it'd be
fire
nice to
could
have,
do.
If,
leave natural. in the
my
middle.
guess is if it were bigger, you could do that for
Yeah.
sure.
That's relatively small.
Yeah, this one's tight
Okay,
for a cul-de-sac. It looks big. So the next one, building up the drama,
Save the best for last.
is the middle one. And this was the one I was thinking about even when we were discussing it. So it's bringing the road down, so it's 90 degrees.
Yeah, I like it.
Which was a very good suggestion, but I think the other advantage is it's separating further
Yeah,
from Dana Avenue. If the road goes straight, these are fairly close.
Yeah.
So it's almost in between Dana and Highland Terrace, and that makes sense. But it opens up, assuming we're flipping land swaps to some degree, it opens up this corner,
Right.
which is relatively flat. It's not flat, but relatively flat. The height on the road here is approximately what it is here. It goes down, so we would fill that in, raise it up a bit.
Right.
And we could get 4 units here, and the units step back to try to align with the little
Yeah,
house at
it's
the
nice,
corner. That would be the accessible unit. It's the flatter portion of the site. That's what A is, accessible. What I've done in this scheme is pull all the structures further away from the property line, south.
Mhm.
If I remember, I wrote 25 feet, I forget now, I drew this over the weekend, but I believe this is 25 feet. The zoning now says it can be 15.
Right, no,
Might
that's
even be
good.
more than that. And then,
Just to be clear, you're right, it's 15, and if it's 25, that's a real positive for
oh yes,
for Dana.
well, the goal was, in my head, was to preserve the tree line
Yeah,
as much as possible.
I think
Well,
so,
I'll go
too.
further, and to pull at the corner, to pull the buildings further
Right.
away from the corner because of this property.
It's 30 feet. I just scaled it off the drawing. You actually have
Thank
a
you.
full 30 feet
Thank
from
you.
the property.
Then I said 25,
I know, I
so
gave you-
thank you.
Gave
It's
you
even
that.
better.
Cut yourself
Thank
5
you.
feet.
And so this is another one of the 4-unit buildings here. And the reason there's so much distance between, or number C, is this is the hilly portion again. And I wanted to preserve a grouping of trees as much as possible so that the tree line actually comes down and goes back up as much as possible. Now, we can make it tighter. In the next scheme, I do make it tighter, not a lot, but a bit. But there's nothing worse than being in a building and looking out the backyard and all you see is a parking lot.
oh, yeah, really.
And this parking lot is gonna be a little higher than the buildings on Highland. So when you're standing up, you'll see the wheels of a car.
Right.
So if there are trees and brush in between, it mitigates that. Again, this is about 25, well, this one actually is 25 down. This one is over 25. This backyard might be switched over here. So the road comes in, it's actually a nicer road this way, I think. And you
Definitely.
won't
Yeah,
have
definitely,
people
yeah.
speeding to the end.
Yeah.
And here's our 4 spaces added to the road, so it's like a wider road, but we're limiting where the width of the road goes wide. We did the same thing on Highland here.
Mhm.
Then and so I kept the same number of houses originally, 4. My guess is the developer is going to say he needs this house. So I drew it dotted. And that was in courtesy to you. It's
I appreciate
courtesy
that.
to somebody else, courtesy. And I kept the cul-de-sac because frankly, the hammerhead, I started drawing the hammerhead and it's clumsy. And I think we worked it out, as you'll see in a minute, but here again, you have an open corner where it should be open, next to the houses as much as possible. And I tried to put the new houses, based on the 10,000 square feet, sort of in between
Mhm.
where the adjoining houses are. So at least if you're in the backyard, the new houses are right and left. Now, generally, when someone develops a parcel, and it's pretty much true here, but not completely, the trees come down. And what I'm trying to do is keep a series of groups of trees so it feels like what's around it.
Absolutely.
Again, here's the 200-foot property line. The 200-foot distance from the river. And you can only go 10% into the zone. This makes that. This is doable. This is legal. So what we get out of this is 4 to 5. It says cottages. It's not cottages. It's homes. I'll change that. And 8 to 10 affordable homes. cottages, the next scheme.
Right.
And 8 to 10 affordable homes, again, I'm not, I've never felt comfortable with this one, but depending on where this line really is, because this is off of Mass GIS, it's off of an aerial, and that could be 5 feet, sometimes more if it's on an angle, depending on the photograph. So we have a survey that Waterfield Design Group did of the upper portion, but down below, the survey is really based from a photograph. It's not the same accuracy. So this might be more doable than I'm showing. So what else to tell you here? So on C, I said maintain grade and trees, meaning in between. Max inside corners as open space, and then on-street parking permit. In many ways, I think this is the best scheme, but we can come back to that in a minute. And I know Diab was not thrilled with E, but there's a give and take. If this gentleman is putting the road in and we're gaining benefit,
Yeah, yeah.
that's your.
There's probably some compromise I can sell myself for.
No, sold, but you know, if you look at a map, it's amazing how much open space is actually here.
Yeah,
And the kicker is, without this, you can't build that.
Right. No, I understand. One question I had here is, would it be possible to orient the units lengthwise to get away from this narrow?
I think anything is possible. It
may look
wasn't a
horrible.
prototype in my head. No, I don't, since it's only 2 units, keep in mind it gets lower even here. But if it's only 2 units, no, just like we did, we stretched out the private house at this end, we could probably do something like that.
That seems like a neat idea.
But I think the key is, whatever we do, we don't have the real information
Right.
and a survey, so this is possible. These are definite,
Okay, right.
that one's possible.
And then if it ends up linear, possibly, as Diab is suggesting, then maybe whether it's macadam or something else, that we can have some sort of parking there, so it's off the street. There already is some parking up the
Well, this is
hill.
all street parking now.
Yeah, I know, but
A
they
lot of
need
people
it.
From the hospital.
Yeah.
So I think the issue is that the town doesn't allow overnight parking on the streets, so there'd have to be an exception made.
Well, you're
For
gonna
these
cut
units.
down on your housing then. If you,
Actually, Dennis is right. We're opening a door here that maybe this is the time to consider. If we're really doing this denser development, we were just talking about parking in the last conversation, and I'm not saying it's a great thing, but I keep thinking, given our location, we're heading toward Newton and Brookline. It's just, and the pressure's on to keep building these dense projects, so, at Cambridge, right, where we have a real resident, it's tough. So, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm there, but it may be we're there anyway, or we're heading there.
You're referencing maybe considering overnight parking.
It's
Well,
the big one. It's a
keep in
big,
mind,
we're,
this-
we're turning a corner, but when I see, if the pressure's on to put in units and then back to the town center, there's a huge issue in the center as well.
And
Again,
it's not big enough
Highland
for the
Avenue,
whole
you know, there's a
zone
lot of
approval.
there's gonna be a lot of traffic pressure because we've got the house right
Right,
there, so, just saying.
yeah.
well, again, it's gonna come down to meeting your 2 parking spaces per car,
Right.
per unit, and,
2 per unit.
you
Wait,
know,
wait,
I
wait.
would question that,
I would too.
but that's up to you.
But
And
if we put them horizontally, I mean, maybe there's a way to
This
have
is
the
the
parking.
most efficient and the
Well, I
least
just meant that
costly
one
way of
building.
doing it,
Yeah.
and doing affordable housing, the state will only allow you, they will only invest in projects that are at a certain level, and the more site work you do on a very difficult site will just jack up the price.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm trying to show you another, it doesn't mean you have to accept it,
No.
but if you look at the first drawing again of what Waterfield Design Group did,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
trying
No, what you've got's way
trying to
better.
get the parking in where
Yeah.
the,
Oh, right,
the shifted road is, yikes, you know,
Oh, that's
there is,
horrible.
that you've lost the nature, around the houses, and,
That's everything in that neighborhood.
Well, that's basically, and I wanna make that really
so,
clear.
again, on the
Yeah.
count, this is 4 to 5 private and 8 to 10, 8 to 10 affordable units. I would say solid 8 affordable on both the schemes we've looked at.
Okay, that's excellent.
Next
And the cottages,
is the next one. I'm sorry, that's a
No.
mislabel.
yeah, and this one.
These are
Study
regular
two,
houses.
these are
The next one
houses.
are the-
Full-
Sorry, I was already looking
I
at the
made
next
a
one.
mistake. Oh, you're already ahead?
Don't care. We'll get there.
Sorry.
So the cottages are, came out of the discussion with the board of what about smaller lots, smaller houses? And Brian and I talked about what size house, and this shows that. And the notion is you have more of them, but again, since they're smaller, they actually cover less land, the buildings themselves. And because they're smaller, they can be pulled further away from the existing houses. And this is the hammerhead. The hammerhead did not work with the existing zoning because the lots are so big, it was almost like the hammerhead was in addition to where the houses were. And what
Whoa,
we
whoa,
tried.
whoa, whoa, I don't understand you. Try, just
Well,
restate
if you
that.
look at this hammerhead location,
Mhm,
as, notice I pulled the hammerhead south
mhm,
to
mhm.
get away from these houses. This is not a buildable site. It's not big enough on his property, and again, this is the mysterious, is it there or not? So these houses wouldn't relate to the hammerhead as much as they would relate to the main road. And what I tried to do here is, even though the sidewalks, the entries relate to the road, I'm trying to use the parking.
Right,
Yeah.
And it's awkward. I think it's awkward. But I think with the cottages, because the lots are smaller, they're 6,500 square feet, it kind of works.
It's really nice how you don't have the driveways right in the front, which is one of
Mhm.
our board's pet
yeah,
peeves.
I agree.
You know, so
Hello.
that you have them from the side
Yeah, I
on
like
all
that.
of them.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna control that. Again, this is this is pretty much what was drawn earlier, and I just did a smaller version. But keep in mind,
Well, I guess there's
That's-
some possibility, maybe a pretty strong one, that this could go all the way to permitting and then get sold, so,
But this is an intriguing concept.
yeah, I think so.
so
I
what I
agree.
did
I'm sorry,
that's,
that would be-
what I did that's different, to get this house in, I shifted the property line west 15 feet. So these are each reduced by 7.5 feet, so the tree line here would be very small.
Okay.
This one would probably work, and then these are identical to what you've seen before. So this is 6 to 7 private cottages and 8 to 10 affordable homes. Again, on the 200-foot riverfront line, the setback, these pretty much seem to work within what you're allowed to do. Now, it is more buildings that are here. There are buildings here that were not there on earlier ones, and this is closer on that side. But it is pulled back more from the north.
But these are smaller in size, which is more of a need in town
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So these are like,
less likely to have
The size was,
huge impact on our.
Yeah.
I didn't write it, if I remember correctly, it's 1,400 square feet, 700 square feet on the floor. But I mean, that could give and take, give or take. But, you know, on a 65 square foot lot, these setbacks are pretty tight. Like that one is right at the setback line. So you really can't shift
Well,
it.
What is
Hang
the
on.
setback?
Pardon me?
What is the
I
setback
think it's 10 feet
So
in that zone.
on each side?
our
Yes, but you have the
6,500,
driveway, excuse me, Beth, you have the driveway on the other side, yes?
Are 6,500 square foot lots allowed as of right? in
This was
district?
what was, no, it was
Okay, so-
suggested as an alternate.
I mean, you could do what they did at the Pansy Patch, for example, where it's a condo development.
I
There's
was
no
just going to say,
internal
right.
lot lines. There's nothing to,
That was my next
I
question.
mean, if the 6,500 square foot lot isn't even allowed as of right in this district
Yeah, why-
anyway,
Could
then
this be a
throw
condo
everything out
development?
and just
Yeah, but
assume there doesn't have to be individual lots.
right, it was a guide though. For instance, the two houses down below are only 20 feet apart.
So, hang on, I wanna follow up because that was to me an underlying huge question. We've been going down the path, cause we started with subdivision proposal, with the idea that these is a subdivision, but where are we, and I don't know whom to even direct this to, maybe Brian would have been the ideal, but Beth and Dennis, you can both
Well,
jump in,
so I
why
mean,
not a condo development?
If they were gonna do this as a subdivision, they would require a variance
Right, right.
for lot size.
I'd rather see it a condo where we don't
To
have to.
me, you could create, I think we
This
talked
is a
about
nice
this
condo
earlier in the
project.
process, was an overlay district that would,
Mhm.
similar to what we did for the Pansy Patch, suit the
Mhm.
property itself. It would get rid of all of those kind of internal lot line requirements.
Agree.
Well, my feeling was that since it's joint development, all of that is open.
Mhm.
I believe you can't do 4 attached units in this.
Right, but those are being developed under the 40B requirement, so zoning's out the window anyway.
I think the notion was the whole thing might be, or at least one notion was the whole thing might be.
Yes, just from our previous conversations with the selectmen, my understanding was that the affordable units would be developed out of town under the 40B, and then the units by the developer would be developed separately.
However, I'm gonna jump in real quick. As part of the property and exchange of land, we can put an easement or
Right.
restriction on the land in the, as an agreement to the swap. So if we say, this is what you wanna build, and we will give you, our land, will do the land swap, but as part of also that agreement is also that you can only build 5 houses, and that this plan is attached to it,
Right.
and that is
It's a
eased to the
private
land.
way, basically, this is a private.
Right, it's just a matter of how you work that in
Yeah.
zoning, because
It-
there's
it-
nothing
It
that
came-
allows us as of right.
Right.
This,
Right,
this
right.
scheme came out of the discussion with the board. It wasn't the person who has the option on the land who suggested
No,
it.
understood.
This was a way to look at the third option. We couldn't figure out, I certainly couldn't figure out what a good third option was without changing the lot.
Right, yeah, no, I'm just saying, it seems like if they have to get a variance anyway, then it's probably easier just to create an overlay district where you
I
get rid
agree
of the
with that.
lots
I agree with that.
altogether.
I like this one, of the 3, study 3, and especially, cause back to Heather's question, which I'm totally with you, let's get some smaller houses,
Yeah.
built here.
So what's the minimum size for the ARC dog?
Oh, Beth is our expert.
Arcdod.
I do have the zoning
Well,
bylaw.
Arcdod, you have to have a 10-acre lot.
10 acre, okay, thank you.
And what do we have?
There's no
If this-
internal lot lines.
Right, I was just wondering when, so we would have to come up with a new overlay
You need to
district.
create a new district.
Okay, yeah.
Guy, Dave, can I send you a picture of that house on that drawing E, I think it is, in that area? With my property
F?
line right there, where it's polka dotted,
Wait,
right
you're
there,
talking
where
about,
it's dotted, that dotted line, yes, right there.
this is the house?
There's
again?
absolutely, yeah, that's my house right there. There is absolutely no buffer between that house and my house. It's just it's almost a field. So you're basically putting a house right outside my window.
This
There's no
is
space.
an option, it's not,
Can I send you
I'm
a
not
picture of
in fact,
No,
I said the previous scheme is the one I favor.
Mhm.
This is an option to show the board what is feasible. Let's let them talk about what that is, and we get that.
Yeah, that's
I
why I
got it
wanna
in
send
the
them a
first
picture
meeting.
so they can see it, cause I don't know if they've, can I send you a picture, Dave?
I've seen your
Email
house,
you?
there's.
Yeah, why don't you send it to Brian, and he can get it around to everybody?
I'll send it right now.
Wait a minute, is your favorite, study two?
We're not open
Ryan,
for
yeah.
public.
Yeah,
Can
we-
No, I just,
Can we
question,
just, yeah,
is
yeah,
your favorite study two?
Well, first of all, we're just seeing these now. We're just seeing these when you are, so there's no like kind of favorite or whatever. We'll have a discussion about them, so.
You said my favorite.
No, but I mean,
I'm a
this,
consultant, I'm not
Right,
the
no, I
side.
understand. What I wanna do is just show you a
He doesn't
picture,
have
so
to
it'll
work
help
here.
you.
you can send Brian the picture, would be great. We don't have any
I've
issue with that.
walked-
We're just trying to
I've
have a
walked this-
discussion with the consultant. We're happy that you're here and we want your input, but maybe not exactly right now when we're trying to just get this info. But
Can I send you the
Yes.
picture so it may help you?
please,
look
yeah,
at
send it to
picture,
Brian.
Please do.
Yeah.
What's your address, please?
It's djarius@winchester.us.
Or mine is easier, J Welch,
Yeah, it's
W-E-L-C-H,
Can
at
you put it up on the screen?
winchester.us. We'll have that. I don't know if we'll have time because we're already like a half an hour behind, but we take you at your word. We don't quibble with what you just said. You made a representation. We have no reason to doubt what your representation is whatsoever.
And again.
But it doesn't mean that trees can't be built, but, I mean, put in, but, you know, or some sort of buffer, but we're not advocating that at all. Please don't misunderstand. We're, you know, but, so,
These
Hey,
are
Jackie,
just
let's
can,
get back.
can we just,
possibilities.
yeah, hold on one second. So we wanted to complete Dennis's
Yeah.
presentation. We're actually paying for Dennis to be here.
Mhm.
He's a, very talented architect and we're so grateful for his
Yeah, he's
expertise.
great, but
All right,
I mean,
hold
I'm
on,
just looking
hold
at
on.
these, I'm
No,
not-
hold on. So we want him to finish his presentation. We would like to hear from John at some point, but we'd like Dennis to finish the presentation, so.
Oh,
I have a question of explanation.
But we wanna hear from you. I just would like Dennis to finish his
finish,
presentation.
please, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do, in summary, is to locate affordable housing, because it's the biggest block and the most cost, sensitive part of the development, just because of the funding. And knowing that it was going to be a relatively small houses, to make them as livable as possible as far as the open space next to it. That's why I'm proposing the housing where I've located it. I think they're the most buildable sites near Highland, which I think most of us agreed was the proper place, not to isolate it, but to put it in the community. And I firmly believe it can be economically built, but designed in a way that it feels like other houses aesthetically. And then from a private development point of view, the back end, if you will, of the site, or the eastern portion, looking over more of the reservation, I believe is, maybe the land option owner doesn't feel that way, but I think he would, is the more valuable from a development point of view. So flipping it that way is pretty much what he did in his the first scheme, the first drawing, and maintaining that. Again, without this parcel down below, the lower right-hand corner, we're gonna lose at least 2 units, if not 4 units, because of the parking situation. We don't have garages, and we couldn't afford them anyway, so that's the reality. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's in your hands now, and I've shown you the options. The good news is I think we can get 8 handsome, affordable units easily on the site, maybe 10. And as far as the private development goes, I think both of the last 2 options work. But I'm not the numbers guy. He is. And as far as cottages, where you have perhaps buildings closer to the houses, or bigger houses, you know, the existing zoning says bigger houses, and that would be the easiest to implement.
Right, the plan ahead,
The number 2.
yeah,
Study two.
yeah, do you mind
Study
dropping
two
down a
is using
second?
the existing, zoning for the big houses,
Correct.
and then ours would go in as a 40B, so then our land that we would have in the.
So the main difference between 2 and 3 is the affordable stays roughly the same. It's just whether
They
to
get a
have,
little tighter, they're closer together.
Yeah, I am a little worried about
C is
that.
reduced, so they,
with
and-
3, with number 3,
yes.
okay.
That was to get that one other.
Cottage,
This
yeah.
works perfectly with the 10,000 square foot lots or the equivalent, including that land becomes part of this is a little tight, but I can live with that.
And this one has more separation from your house.
Yes, and also it opens this corridor up much more as well.
Like a sight line, kind of.
Yeah, I think it would be very handsome, this site plan. Not that the other cottage one wouldn't be, maybe that would be too, but looking from an open space point of view, the ravine, this would be quite nice, I think. But to get 8 affordable units for sure, I think is, I don't know what you were thinking, but it's certainly more than I initially thought. John has a question.
I'd just like some background information. My understanding that when you were out here in early February, the idea was that you were gonna come up with 4 affordable units.
No, well,
That was
that's
the
what
target.
people
So
said,
what was the rationale from going from 4 to 8?
capacity.
We need them.
Capacity. This is an option
Yeah, yeah.
showing what's possible.
So,
We could surely just build that, but we're losing an opportunity here, and.
We're giving up good open land, and if we're doing that, we may as well, as a town, add units, right?
so we,
Well, if I put my Craig Miller hat on, if you built 4 affordable units, then the unit in the back could be converted to a private market rate house.
He showed 8 on this scheme. Affordable units,
He showed 8.
yes.
Yeah, and my understanding of your presentation was that in your 3 options, you were gonna aim for 4 affordable units.
No.
no, we were gonna maximize the opportunity
No.
for affordable
Okay,
units while
great.
also trying to meet the numbers that Mr. Miller was looking at. And in this scheme, we're short one, really, because to build that road, to ask him to build the road, we're most likely,
Yeah.
unfortunately, DFE is gonna come into play in
Yeah,
that discussion.
I mean,
But we don't have to build all affordable units, it's just a layout of how we could go proceed, and we could do it in phases, or we could just not build it at the time, the town just secures the land and has the road, and we don't build it at this point, but,
there's no, yeah, I mean.
you know, so it's, at least sets it all up, and then,
But it would be, I mean, ideally, the more affordable units that we can get, as long as we can also preserve landscape.
Right,
I firmly believe, I mean, that's part of the reason I question this one. The one on Highland, just because of that view
Right.
looking in. But it works urban, town-wise,
Right,
given the
so-
houses.
right.
It works,
Yeah.
it makes the streets,
Yeah.
so it really depends how we want to interpret it. Having been in on some meetings on the affordability issue,
This town
We
needs
need-
the units.
we need
we
units.
do, but we don't have the money to pay for it,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to, so, if we don't have the money to pay for it, where's it gonna come out of?
Well, I wasn't asked
I know you weren't, that's why I'm saying, I'm speaking to this board specifically, you
That is
can't
beyond the
say,
scope of
okay,
what
well,
your
just build
church
it. We don't have the money to do it, but we are showing the state that, where this is the plan for the land, if the money becomes
Absolutely.
available, but it's not available right now. We have been looking at nonprofit options, but they
Right, that's.
don't have the
next.
ability to build this many, so they might be able to take on one building.
I think we need to leave that door open. We have seen one informal communication
Yeah.
with Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
There are other, John can speak to this
Yeah,
much
actually,
better than
there
I
are.
can.
Well,
There are other organizations which.
yeah, when we went to the hearing on 40B, there were some speakers who
Yeah.
represented.
I just wanted, like
Yeah.
someone said, why are we not to just do it? I was like, we can't do it, we don't have the
No,
money, it has to
but-
come through.
Right, no, but
other
there
avenues.
is, we actually were hearing from some of those
Yeah.
people who are nonprofits who do
Yeah.
building like this, so.
It just takes time and it takes
But
fundraising
yeah, so.
process, it's
I
not.
have to admit
right.
that, I prefer the smaller houses. I don't like the idea of building more 3,000 square foot
know.
homes in this
It's
town.
If you're
Our
closer
own.
to 4, I think.
I think that, yeah, these are huge. We
Yeah.
don't need that.
Right, I agree.
I am very cognizant of the impact on the neighborhood. I'm wondering, we don't know what Craig Miller was interested in. We don't know, for instance, if we give him, and I'm gonna move
Well,
back to.
he's shown 3,000 square foot house.
He has, he's verbally said he likes the concept of cottage. We
Yes,
don't
he
have him
has.
here.
No, you
and-
said that to me as well.
Yeah, and there are 6 units here. Perhaps, he's happy with 5 units. He's still gonna make a reasonable profit on his investment. And with 5 units, maybe there's a way of reconfiguring it so that there's less of an impact on that house off to the right.
Would you look at, on this scheme F, and take away the one that's close to the letter D?
I think there's 2, both of these are problematic, I think. And so, flipping this one for here makes it better, but it doesn't alleviate the problem here. So, I'm not a designer, I don't know how this will all work together. Certainly if these were condos, maybe since you could share driveways, you could pull the
Right.
buildings close
Condos
together.
allows a lot
I mean,
more.
a condo development would allow, and we
Be
could.
townhouses.
Yeah, townhouses, but bringing them closer together, shared driveways would
Right.
really provide a much larger buffer around there. And I admit, we didn't talk about that, and maybe that was our failing for not.
They don't
Well, you
have to
mean
be
more like
townhouses.
Winning Farm.
I mean, this could be a condo development of individual.
You mean more like Winning Farm.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that, the only thing that I'd just like to contribute, and thank you so much, Dennis, for all this
Yeah,
expertise.
they're really
But,
good.
but it's just that there's always balancing, and so while some people may say we need units in town, other people may say, well, that's more pressure on our school systems, and there isn't any slam dunk, other people might say, well, if some of this open space isn't buildable anyway, then why not have more open space in here, even though that's a trade-off with units? So, I mean, everybody has their own value system and priorities, and to just say we need something is a fair point, but it's maybe only looking at one thing at a time, as opposed to, we continually hear about the pressure on our school system with more families. So the cottage, while there may be a lot of benefits to that, and I'm not saying that there aren't, it would arguably be more families. So right, because it's 7 as opposed to potentially
But there are
5.
It
fewer
could actually be
bedrooms.
people downsizing
You
from
may
the
have
large.
that.
No, I don't, I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything negative, I'm just reminding the board that everything is a balancing. There's no clear, hey, this is, hits on everything and this is perfect, because everything is about balancing. And in fact, whether it's the neighbors or other people might say, why would we want so much density in here, in what is traditionally a neighborhood of single-family houses? And even if the town needs affordable units, do we have to have that many in here when this is a neighborhood? And so then it's gonna be more cars, more pressure on Highland. So even though there may be a benefit, hold on, I'm almost finished, to having more units because the town needs it, well, in this particular location, right near the hospital, you got more cars here, with the more units it is, obviously. So all I'm saying is, everything's a trade-off, everything's balancing. I think it's sort of not really accurate to say we only wanna look at one thing, because this is traditionally a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that already has a lot of pressure on it from the hospital, and we're definitely very sensitive to the residents' concerns, and we want your input. It's just that tonight, we're just kind of receiving these plans from Dennis, so there may be a better time to get your input, because we totally want it. But that's my only thing, is just that I think this is, what our board is charged with doing, is balancing and coming up with maybe what seems to be the best array, but there is no clear winner with anything, particularly a site that's difficult like this one. No offense to anybody or anything, I'm sort of stating the obvious, but I just wanted to remind the board, there are trade-offs with everything. More units might seem great in some ways, but that does put pressure in other categories,
It does.
so.
And because of the fact, that you're really putting up, against the reservoir and the fells there too, so, there is that, so.
Does anybody else want to talk about any of these plans, or does anybody have any questions for Dennis, since we're so grateful that he's here?
I'm curious, Dennis, with to me, the topo creates actually interesting possibilities, and nowhere here, and guess I'm losing my memory in terms of the up and down and up and down. But one opportunity always with irregular sites is that when you have the front access to the front door, you've got the opportunity to put a garage under the building in the back. So I haven't seen that.
That's on the private houses.
It is, okay, that's exactly,
That-
okay,
that-
I'm glad
that
I
was-
asked.
That
Yeah,
was his
it's a plus.
notion from the beginning, and I tried to maintain that
So
wherever
these
I could.
actually are
What that means
garaged under
is
the
there are
house.
steps up to the house, because it's not enough
Oh,
of a
houses,
grade
that's
change.
fine, not that, right.
And I didn't do that in the affordable just because
Yes,
We were on slab on grade.
I don't think it's going to happen.
no, that's good, I'm glad I asked, because everybody.
So we're kind of behind on our agenda. We have Mount Vernon
Yeah.
property next, but I don't want to necessarily rush this. And Dennis, this is phenomenal work. I know that everyone on the board appreciates
Oh, I
being able
enjoyed
to
it.
see the illustration, but one last lap. Does anybody have any questions
Oh,
for
boy.
Dennis or comments while he's here?
Just my thanks and appreciation.
Yeah,
This is-
yeah. We're way ahead of
I tried to
the-
listen to everybody's comments,
Good.
including the public, as much as possible. And of course, this last one could be modified. The op said maybe one or two of those units go away, and then maybe we get the lost extra distance between the affordable units and the parking lot.
Yeah,
By shifting it, taking it out, we can shift everything a little further and get the best of both worlds. But I assume that'll be part of the negotiation with the option holder.
Okay, well, thank you so much again, Dennis, for everything. And so now we're just gonna.
I have one question for Dennis.
I believe it.
So if we're talking about changing property lines with the current owner,
thank you.
and you said I'm 35 feet from the back on these, is there any way to create a no-build section?
Oh, I
Like
think.
that actually is like the
Yeah,
buffers
I-
between,
as-
and then that's the one part of the property line exchange, so you have 35 feet, but we keep it 10 foot where it's all natural.
Yeah, I think you can do anything. Even the layout where the road is only on the northern parcel, they need this town to work with them. And that opens the door to some agreement.
But you said, so, yeah, can you go to, study two? So just, I wanna make sure the setbacks and stuff would allow, I think the setbacks allow for this, all around the property lines to actually put a buffer zone
That was the
that we make,
intent.
like, we put it to turn over to conservation or
Yeah.
whatever. So we can put a 10-foot edge all around the property lines.
Yeah, I imagined it even more than that in places, back in this.
So the property line would actually,
Oh, well, that's up to
I
you.
think it'd be better to do
Says
an
tax revenue
easement,
probably,
like
right?
some sort of conservation easement as
Yeah.
opposed to
I think that's
having
a
it be
great
a
idea.
separate lot.
yeah, the lawyer's
So
gonna
then
work that one out.
it would include, it would be counted in the overall square
Instead
footage
of
of the
having
lot.
no trees, it'd be great to somehow link this wherever possible
Yep,
to the big open space with trees.
yes,
And I think it's doable. It's a beautiful site.
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
it is, and I think that would be a plus for
Everybody, including the
So,
neighborhood.
that one typo with the cottage, if you
I'll switch
fix,
that,
yeah, just so
yes.
when Brian gives it to Craig.
Yeah, no,
But thank you
I will
so
switch
much.
it.
Yeah,
Take
no
care.
problem. Thank you so much, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you got to talk to John.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll have a long talk in the future.
Okay, that sounds good. It's up to,
John Levitt,
yeah.
please.
so one of the.
so if we can go to Mount Vernon, do we have proponents? Yeah, thank you.
Why don't you come out?
It's up to you, but do we need Beth to stay for,
I'll go sitting out.
okay, yeah, right, sounds good. So Dia, do you mind putting up, because I did this at work today, just the block where the, like Home Run Ice Cream used to be on Mount Vernon? So like the street
I'd like to
view?
help you out, but unfortunately.
Thank you guys for coming,
Email the planning board.
Is that how you want us to do it?
to Brian, to send it to send it. Okay, great.
yeah.
Oh, that's good. We're
As
just,
long as we get the
yeah.
information, you know.
You
we
send
can
it to
do
Brian and then we'll distribute it to the board. But if you don't know how to spell his last name, mine's easy, J. Welch.
It's online, it's on the
Thank
web,
you.
it's on the town website.
Yeah.
And before our next meeting, and then hear it
Thank you for
for the
coming.
public to hear it too, in addition to.
So it's a Mount
record.
Vernon, 10 to 12, yeah. Thank you guys for coming. So we apologize for, we usually try to stick with the agenda, but we had some topics that took a little bit of more time than we thought
We
early on.
noticed.
Yeah, and that was all good. So, and we have looked at what you submitted, so is the idea here that you just want to kind of talk about the plan a little bit and,
That's correct.
okay.
Okay, why
This
don't you
is-
give them a little bit of, a time?
Yeah,
how much
only
time,
because we have to talk
wanna
about
ask-
draft town meeting articles and we try to finish by around 10.
All I
So
need
if
is,
you wanna
what
talk
we're
about
trying,
something, that'll
my
be
name
good.
is John Levitt. This is Al Lucena.
We're gonna put this up. right
Basically,
here.
he's my architect. Thank
So
you.
you're the owner?
The history, the
Are you
his,
the owner?
yes.
Okay.
No, my family's the owner.
Okay,
My boss of all bosses.
LLC.
right here. Okay, keep going.
So anyway, the history of this, about five or 6 years ago, me and my wife thought we were gonna move downtown, and we were gonna put a,
And make it a little smaller.
I don't know
We're
what you,
I
listening.
remember.
Make it like a little
Heather
smaller.
remembers.
I liked it.
and what happened was, is we were gonna put a 3.5, a story and a half, we were
And
gonna
then
add
go
on to
that
it.
way. So you see more of this side. We're
But
listening, sorry.
It
Trying
couldn't,
to get this schematic.
it couldn't actually, the CBD district didn't exist then. Fast forward,
That's right, that's right.
You are the
So you have to
reason
fast
that
forward
the
about
CBD district, you are
Yes.
one of the reasons that.
so what happened was, is that now I've been trying to
listening.
deal with this for, I don't know, about a year and a half, 2 years, and me and Al have been trying to get the FAR down to below 2.5. And we can't. So we want to get a feeling from the board of where you folks are at with something like this. I mean, we've been discussing with Brian, and Brian said, why don't you go discuss it with the board? I mean,
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for the thought process, for coming, for reaching out to Brian, because we want this kind of open dialogue with owners. As you know, we're special permit granting authority in the Center Business District. We spent a lot of time and effort, and with the benefit of consultants with respect to the Center Business District zoning, which town meeting passed, and you're probably familiar with it, about a year and a half ago. And we want to encourage economic yeah, that's perfect. Encourage economic development and all that other great stuff, more foot traffic. We want the economic center of town to have this perfect balance between the beautiful character that exists, but also to have thriving businesses. And it's really important to the town for, a lot of reasons that probably don't even need to be said. So in any event, so with that in mind, we appreciate your sort of creativity and the ideas that you're thinking about. And have you looked at the town center zoning and,
yes.
yeah,
That's why he's here.
yeah, so,
That's why he's
May-
here, because he's
But
asking.
I guess I gotta turn it over to Al, because he's got the history of what we've attempted to do and where we're trying to go, and
that'd be great,
Again, sorry, but not the 20-minute version.
yeah. Only
Oh,
'cause-
five.
Yeah,
That was, no.
a couple minutes, and then we just have some responses for you, yeah.
No, well, basically, I'm gonna pass you the proposed elevations, so you can.
I think we have these not
I
in
think they
color.
have, but not in color.
Because you probably
Yeah.
have, originally, we want to make add 2-story, 1.5 stories. That was.
No, I think they
originally-
got this version, I think,
So, but then, because the FAR and everything, so we
Yeah.
shrink the whole proposal to just 1-story addition.
I didn't
So
get
we
that.
no, you got the version, you got that
Yeah.
version, you got
I
the version.
didn't.
Oh, great. Yeah, but you can see in color, which is gonna be a different impact.
No, there's more stuff
Yeah.
floating around here.
Now that you said that the town would like to keep the beautiful character of the downtown. Now
Yep,
I understand why, 2 years ago, when I talked to John, I said, John, let's go aggressive, let's go something very contemporary. He said, I live here, you don't know what you're talking about. So we're back again, we do step back and see, okay, what is the architecture typical of this area? So that's why we came with that very conservative proposal. So everything looks like it was built 100 years ago, so it looks like it's not gonna be disturbing. The only thing is we adding one story more on top of the existing second floor. We adding also a residential use, so we are copying the same 5 units that we have on the second floor, we're making on the third floor. But still, the building will be mixed use, commercial and residential too, okay? That's it.
Okay, so-
Where we're stuck with is this FAR.
yeah, we
Yes.
understand, yeah.
Definitely.
Except you're a historical building, and I think this story was also taken off in a fire.
No,
No,
It's just
no.
one left.
correct.
That was very confusing, yeah.
It's
I
not-
don't know
there is
about
no-
that. That's
I do.
It's both.
Yeah,
There's
no.
whole
well,
block.
that's not what my family says.
Yeah.
My family's been here since 1849, and they
Whoa,
basically
really?
You
said
can see the
That's
pictures.
cool.
I mean,
there's a structural component to the top of that building.
you Just look at the pictures, but go ahead.
No, I know where you looked, because they're the one who informed me.
Right.
And I says, are you sure? And they're saying, they showed me pictures. And they're saying that happened in 1950, 54, 55. This building was built in 1890-something. So I'm just explaining to you the history of the building.
Of the one you owned, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I'm trying to determine is
Yeah.
that,
We're.
what direction do we go now with the FAR?
We should
So,
have 2.5, but we have 2.69.
Right, right.
It is nothing really that we can shrink, cut, or eliminate in
Yeah.
order to match with the
Yeah.
2.5.
So, this is sort of a, probably, kind of a different kind of, way to look at this. So, aside from the zoning issues that you've identified and that we're familiar with the requirements in the town center, so, one of the things that kind of came to my mind that I wanted to just kind of tee up and just ask you is, presumably it's a different owner for the other side, the left side, that's
Yes.
like, we'll just call that shingle for the sake of the conversation, so on the left. So, and I think we know who that is. And so one of the things when we were looking at the Center Business District zoning was sort of to, have this balance between the economic development and sort of encouraging some development, but also having this, maintaining the character of the town. And you have a gorgeous building, the bay
Thank
windows
you.
and everything, absolutely beautiful. And you obviously take really good care of it. And we're so glad that you're in town
I
center,
have to tell you,
obviously.
it's not me, it's my wife.
Okay, well, obviously, and
She's watching.
and I just
Don't
want
catch
you to
you.
know,
You got it wrong.
we certainly appreciate that, and because it's such a, prominent location in the town center, which everyone in our town and obviously outside of town really cherish. And so, thank you for your hard work with that structure. But so one of the things that I was kind of curious about though, and I, appreciate that you're here to talk about the zoning, the FAR issue, but looking at it sort of more generally, putting all that aside, is whether or not you've considered talking with the other owner about possibly proposing a story across the block. And I'm not saying by that question that we would agree with that necessarily, I'm just having a hypothetical conversation. And the reason why I'm curious about that is because we, as a board, have spent all this time with the Center Business District zoning to think of this kind of in a really kind of, thinking about it as the entire town center and how one piece affects another piece and how it all kind of pulls together. And it's certainly not perfect, but there's a lot of great things about it. And so, and I'll just speak for myself, I was kind of thinking, again, putting the zoning aside momentarily, those issues, and I'm not making a comment whether or not we would be supportive or not supportive or anything like that, but just for a moment, putting that to the side. If you've thought about reaching out to talk to the other owner about possibly looking into or considering something that would include the block, so that there might be a little more harmony and uniformity, which would potentially be a little bit more embracing the sort of some of the concepts that we were sort of focusing on in our new zoning, which is to kind of like kind of look at things as a whole as opposed to sort of like kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, sort of silo or on their own developments. Because like in theory, if yours was higher, again, putting the zoning aside for a moment, but just in theory, and then what that would look like in the block, and whether or not, some sort of overall kind of combined development might even be pitched in a way that might assist with some of these zoning issues. But in any event, keeping it this point small, have you reached out to the other, and I'm not saying you
I have.
had any reason to, but I'm just,
I have.
we're kind of curious. And so what do you, we know who that is, yeah.
Yes. I don't think he wants to go there.
Mhm,
I just think he's in a different position in life.
mhm,
That's my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
Oh, I don't know who that is, so.
yeah, we think it's Larry Murray,
it is Larry.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could kind of talk to him too. I mean, the idea, again, just sort of going down that path to just sort of see, so that when we're looking at different options or whatever, that everything's sort of been considered. So, and just for the sense of like a holistic view of the town center, as opposed to having just sort of a partial block with a different height. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not saying that, you know, there isn't a zoning issue or anything at all like that, but we were just curious whether or not you guys had thought about that. So you got sort of like a, kind of a negative on that?
I mean, from my point of view, looking our building as a solo, it's gonna end very nice. But I understand your point of view. As a town, you want to see the whole block grow in the same.
Well, possibly,
Hopefully
or
line.
to at least consider it.
Yeah, that would be fantastic as a town perspective. Of
And
course,
particularly because
town
it's
is
the
right
same
word.
level now, yeah.
But you have offices there. That's not residential.
I understand, yeah.
Well, I'm
We're
trying.
having a theoretical conversation, but
No,
I'm
no,
just
no, no,
kinda-
but I'm thinking out loud, and maybe,
No.
maybe I shouldn't think out loud.
No, go ahead.
I mean, that's all commercial on the second floor.
Yeah.
So wouldn't be it's total, all commercial.
But I mean, this is mixed-use zoning anyway.
Well, the whole,
Town center, that's
Town
why I was
center,
curious how
okay.
much you guys have looked at the zoning, at what are the center, and I'm not quizzing you or anything like that, that's why my colleague thought I was being unfair to you, but that's why I was asking, is that if you've kind of taken a look at, because there's some themes in there that we were trying to sort of underscore, that we're trying to like balance, but also maintain the kind of like character and sort of like atmosphere of what we have now, and so I know you didn't come here thinking that you were gonna have this kind of conversation, but I'm just kind of curious, so if you guys have thought along those lines, and we could reach out to Larry since you guys are interested.
what about the building in back? Has there ever been any discussion about the building in back on
Do you mind going over
Winchester,
next to the, Winchester Place?
Winchester Place?
You mean alongside,
On the back side of the building?
but not that, this building, this
Right,
red brick one?
right. Well, this picture's gotta be
August 2007.
yeah, well, I figured about 10, 12 years. Yeah, that doesn't exist no more. That's all redone.
Right, so this is gone?
No, no, no. I'm talking about that white, that's all been rehabbed.
Okay, so it's
No, no, I
still-
was just, again, excuse me.
Yeah, no, it's still there.
It's still there,
but it's
but,
a completely different elevation. Now it's a vegetable for get inside the residential area and the commercial area too.
Okay, so it's still 1 story tall?
Yes.
Correct.
It's a one story.
So what is your question?
That's
has there ever been any proposals on that building?
The little one?
No, 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 I'm
Oh, this
talking
one
about
on
the
the
big
right.
one.
Does
Yeah,
anybody know who owns that one?
Larry.
Oh, Larry owns that one too. Well, it sounds like we could have a good conversation with him about a few things, but I mean, but my sort of, take on this was because of the visual of that block. It's like, you know, a major spoke, if you will.
Okay,
of
I
our
understand,
town center.
I
Yeah.
understand.
And that it's uniform now, I mean, there's a lot of variation in architectural design, obviously, which is kind of neat because there's variety, but it's still the same level, and so, and we do have different levels in town, so I'm not suggesting that it always
Gotta be
has to be
flat, yeah.
uniform, but I'm just kind of curious where it's such a prominent, road, and I don't want to be repetitive here, so.
Okay.
But maybe we'll reach out to Larry. I know that's not sort of something that you were necessarily thinking of a direction we'd be going in, but again, putting zoning aside momentarily. And again, this
Well,
zoning,
Hang on.
yeah.
The whole board should be discussing that. That's not, you
Yeah.
key this up and everybody else.
No,
is-
I'm not suggesting that the board even has any view
You
whatsoever.
preference that. I think
Yeah.
you preference that 2 or
Yeah.
3
Whether
times.
we reach out to Mr. Murray I still don't know how I feel about that.
Right,
so-
that's the point.
So
right.
we're gonna discuss that, hopefully,
Right.
so.
What about what does the planning board feel about the FAR, which is why
Right, exactly.
he's here
Yeah.
about.
I wish
seating
Brian
that.
were here, because
Yeah,
to me, that's a huge question. That's,
Well, everything is in non-compliance because it's 3,500 square feet, and if I go to if I look at, it's a non-conforming application that I would go on to start out with, because the whole building's
Right,
non-conforming.
Right.
So I guess what I'm looking at is I'm saying,
It's existing non-conforming.
exactly, excuse me.
Yeah.
like going from existing non-conforming to even more non-conforming is where we are.
Yes.
My other question
Thank
is the very broad issue we just were hearing about, which is this huge parking problem. So with this,
We got
certainly-
residential parking.
Pardon?
We get residential parking. We get stickers.
Is there residents in this
Yeah,
parking?
yeah, so they'll have the $10 a year and
Yeah.
then find a place to park.
Actually, residents, I think, is zero. Yeah.
Something though,
Or
They do.
zero.
Yeah.
I mean, that relates though to any kind of permitting to allow something of this added density to go forward.
But let me reverse that. Is there anything being built in downtown other than, I mean, I know the district was formed.
But not here.
No, but is there, where's anything being built?
There was one project which was permitted on Elmwood Ave, which had on-site parking.
That's not downtown, no, that's on the
That's part
back.
of this
It is,
part.
Oh, okay.
it's
Oh,
the
Part of the
center
central
business
business district,
district,
but
and
you-
that counts, I'm sorry, it
Yeah,
does count.
so there is,
And also the Brugger's, the third story, second story, and third story of
But, you know,
Brugger's is built on
to
it.
be honest, whatever gets built here, if we are looking for increasing, whether it's commercial or residential, in this location, there's always gonna be a parking problem. So,
Mhm.
I don't know that we would need more or less parking if this were residential or commercial, so.
And also, in theory, when we did these, we did talk a lot about parking, and we also talked about the proximity to the train, obviously,
Right.
and that, that people, in theory,
I'm
wouldn't
glad you
need
brought that
as-
up.
Yeah, wouldn't need as many parking
There's
spaces.
5 units up there right now.
Yeah,
I think only 2 or 3 have permits.
yeah.
So the ratio is like 50%, the balance take the train, Aruba. I asked Brian, when
I
we
mean, the
get,
location's phenomenal.
I said, Brian, when we get an Uber? He says, what are you talking about? He says, listen, everyone else has Uber, Newton, Wellesley. We getting an Uber slots so we can,
Well,
You
Uber
can talk to the
is-
select board, the planning board.
no, that's not Uber, what's the other company? Yeah, Zipcar, thank you.
Oh, no, didn't we put that in the zoning to have zip card, car share in some of the, if there's a parking lot? There's something about that, I think if there is a parking
So
lot, but in any
I'm
event.
losing it, it says parking, I'm under 7.3.12 dimensional requirements, and then .1 East Core, parking only in rear of site or within footprint of the building.
No, this is the only building in the CBD district that does not need any parking.
Or contribution to parking fund.
or contribution parking fund. I mean, unless we never want to develop this block.
Yeah.
But maybe that was,
No, that was not the intention.
Okay.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
I mean,
Because the height is 40, right?
We cover the height,
Yeah,
we're only 37.75.
with the third floor,
Yes.
yeah,
No, with the 3rd floor.
right.
I
And
mean,
we had a lot of discussion about that, about height, which would by definition be having another level.
so I understand your concerns about parking, but I also think that the trend is for people to build new housing requiring less parking.
I agree with that.
And so,
Oh, I do agree with that.
Well, the only thing that I
Let's
see
get off
is,
the parking topic.
the only thing that I see is that, just in my house, my wife wants to go down to 1 car. And I'm saying, why? Because I can use yours, I'll take Uber the next time.
No, I know.
but the FAR, I think, is the real serious issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess the reason why I wanted to bring Al here and myself is that I'll go that other direction just to research it,
We're glad
see.
you're here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. No, listen to me, I know you folks, this is,
I'm just
you're
saying,
here
we
till
spent
10 o'clock
years
at
on-
night, and
We
I'm saying,
spent years on the Center Business District, and in our minds, we created you guys coming here.
yes,
So
yes.
we're happy that you're here, because this is sort of like, part of, again, putting the zoning aside momentarily, this was sort of the stuff that we were thinking about that would help the town.
Well, I think that when me and my wife came here 6 years ago, we just sold our big house, and we wanted to move downtown. And we realized that we were trying to put a round object into a square object, so we did away with that. And there's 500 to 600 square foot units, that's our,
Well, we also understand when we were doing this, that there's a huge demand
Absolutely.
for units in town center. So, I mean,
And actually for
when I
you-
say we're happy you're here, we're really happy you're here. So, because it's sort of, it just seems like we've gotten feedback from a lot of people, including when we were doing the zoning and otherwise, like when the folks were doing the Brugger's level, that there is a demand, so we understand that, you know.
But there's a huge demand that people have second homes and they want just a bed and a kitchen, just to say they're still in Winchester. And
Yeah, empty nesters,
Yeah.
and then also on the other end, young people who are just kind of starting out and this proximity to Boston and taking the train, so we get it, we totally get it, so, but I guess, you know, in light of time and everything, we could have a discussion as a board about the FAR question and then
yeah,
get
why
back
don't
to
you,
you.
yeah, exactly, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'll get
When
back to
Brian-
Brian and, you know,
Yeah.
in other words,
Yeah.
we can talk to Brian. He's been a great hand for me.
I
I
also
mean,
would like early on, hang on.
Certainly.
Please.
Hey, hang on, I got my oar in the water here. I really feel it's early on. I wanna see the pictures of the Mount Vernon Street, and understand what we're talking about as a historic building, cause I'm not convinced, I've not seen any records or documents that I wanna see that before.
It's a
we
beautiful
get too
building,
far.
do you know how old it is, your building?
1892.
No, but we need
It's
more-
really pretty.
We need more
Thank you.
information.
Right on the corner.
You know, please, go ahead, Heather.
What is the lot area of your
3,700 and something square feet.
3,700 is the square
Right.
feet?
36
You have it there. It's 3,643
and 90,
or 93? Right here,
oh,
97.
3697. Big.
So, and if we need more numbers from you or whatever to complete our discussion, like at our next meeting, then we'll reach out to you.
Well,
through
here, I
Brian.
guess you can take,
No, give it to Brian. Just-
yeah, I can give it to,
Could you just remind me what the FAR is that you're?
the mark, what Brian and Al have come up with is, less than 2.5,
What are you at right now?
What are you at?
2.69.
69.
Well, I just wanna point out that maybe I'm looking at the maybe I'm looking at the wrong, which one are you in? You're in HUD 3?
Well, right now I was on height limit, 7.3.13.
7
Those who are in the
0.3.4.
East Core,
East Court, yep.
Yeah.
7.3.4, is that correct?
Well, it depends on what part of it you want. Oh, the general opening of it, yeah, it's 0.4, but there's well, it's 7.3. What are we looking for, folks?
oh,
Historical structure according to maps, that's what it,
Okay, I see.
Looking for the
I'm looking at the wrong one, so there is another area where we can bump it up by a half. But right here, it's up to, North Core is definitely up to 2.5.
I'm sorry, when you said you could bump it up by a half.
This is on a different,
Oh, okay.
and then another one, that's why I was trying to figure out exactly
What are
where
you
you
looking
were at.
I'm trying to find, what are you reading?
I'm looking at the zoning bylaws.
Right, I have it in my hand.
And in one of the zoning bylaws, in particular in 7.3.14.6,
Oh, no, okay.
which is not this area, it says that
Well, what
FAR
good is
that
that?
exceeds the special permit standards by you can authorize additional FAR by 0.5, but it's not this area.
0.5 meaning 0.5 meaning
You could go up
0.50?
to- You could go up to
It's in the
3.5.
PUDs.
It's in the PUDs,
Yeah.
and it's not in the
Right,
area.
that's the key point, though.
No, no,
Well,
he
yeah, I'm
knows,
just
he's
saying.
acknowledged that,
I
yeah.
acknowledge
Yeah.
that, I'm
Yeah.
trying to find out, I'm scrolling through this map.
Right,
and
but I
trying
don't
to
think
figure out-
everybody else is hearing as clearly, so
Well,
maybe.
what it's clearly is,
It's a
You're
fair
sick.
point, Hume.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
no, you're clear. I just wanna make sure it's not
Yeah.
this area, so
it's
that's,
not this area.
that's
It
really
is up
huge,
to 2.5.
cause that was the whole deal with the PUDs.
Yeah, so. okay.
Excuse me, what do you mean by PUDs? I'm sorry.
That's what I'm
Plan
saying.
unit, so if you look at
Not
this, there's
communicating
3
it.
areas that are sort of like singled out that for like
Greater
special
density.
development,
Oh,
almost like
okay,
an overlay.
okay, I'm sorry, excuse me,
Yeah.
So
okay.
there were targeted areas for this extra density, and
Right.
you're not in it, so
Yeah,
that's,
that's the problem.
It is
But
what
on
it
the
is.
other hand, we did allow the height in that area knowing, right,
Right.
the 40 feet.
well, that's, wait, why did we get to that?
Well, because
Because-
some of it is above it and now.
No,
Well,
we
the-
actually got there because we did pull way back. Actually, we were hoping, or at one point talking about lower heights, but concluded that 40 feet is allowed in these residential districts, and so therefore it seemed kind of crazy not to let that much go in. So the height, I understand, that's probably the least of my concerns is the height. But something else that just should be said, and then I think it's almost 10 o'clock. But back to Jackie's, I think where she was heading with this, if you, whatever got proposed, if there, and I'm not sure, I find this third story even acceptable. I wanna see the historic photos, but it is a designated historic building. There aren't that many in this town center. But as a designated historic building, the question is what then happens to any development rights that do belong to the building that's adjacent, going toward the Rotary, because that one did have historically an additional floor. So when you look at the plans that you did, that you're seeing this as in isolation, and we've got windows all along that wall.
On the left
So
side.
that could be a party wall. So that's a huge issue that would have to be
Well,
resolved.
it
And this
would-
board's role is to oversee development of the full
But
town
it's
center.
the same
Yeah, we did.
resistance that we have in the back. We have
Yeah,
to step back.
We tried to create a corridor with the building that we have in the back because they're higher than us.
Right.
So we can keep those windows in, I mean, God forgive me, but when it happens something, the fire department can get access to that building for that side. So we create that 4 feet corridor between that brick building on the back
Well,
and
I
our
see
property.
it.
Yeah, that's
I see it
correct.
in the
We tried
back.
to do that.
No, but I don't see that.
In the
over
other
here.
side, because it's no building yet, so we propose some windows.
That's
so-
my point, though. That's
Uh-huh.
exactly the point.
Okay,
But
but
you're-
if the property will be grown there, so we probably can readjust our design if that is gonna be part of the conditions.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
I just want to get that
no,
out there.
that's a fair point, and I
Very.
appreciate that. But how do you feel with, because you are very concerned, if, I know it's almost 10, but
Yeah,
you are
very.
almost concerned about, not all the times, about how the looks of the building. And if you see the second floor that we're proposing, the building will looks almost exactly
Yeah.
like.
Well,
when you
actually,
walk
let
like
me,
that. So please.
on the design topic, I would push it over to the design review committee, and I am totally not there because.
Okay, I thought you were talking
it
about
actually-
before about historical, okay.
No,
okay.
I want to see what what it's called integrity of the
Yeah,
building
yeah.
is that we might want to be considering.
That's fair.
Yeah, because generally speaking, when we're doing the permitting, we pull in the design review committee as well.
And the
because we
historical
get their
commission.
thoughts as well.
In the historical commission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're pretty design.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll kind of digest through all of this and, try to get back to you, like, within a couple weeks. I don't know off the top of my head when our next meeting is, but then we'll talk about it as a board after we get input from Brian.
And actually, I'd really, because I think this is the right time, I'd like the design review, actually, it's historical commission, to get some research on this and send it over. So
Okay.
I don't want to go forward with that.
Anyway, we're glad you're here, and we're gonna spend some time on this and try to give you some
Actually,
level of
I
feedback.
feel so strongly about it. I want to make a motion, and I hope I get some support on this one, that this be sent on through Brian to the Historical Commission, just as, at least for a preliminary, I'd like them to see it and know that it's aware. I don't want us to get very far ahead of them, because they do have rights now under our own zoning, which we wanted.
I think it's also just a great courtesy.
Exactly.
So
Thank you.
I will second the motion.
Okay,
you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, yeah, so the
Thanks.
motion carries. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay,
And we made it
sorry
before
we were a
10.
little late. Okay, so guys, we actually
Could
had
we
like a
have
lot.
these colored ones back, please? Thank you.
We actually had some really important things to cover with town meeting articles, and it's really late. So, let's see, when's our next meeting?
Have a wonderful night.
Oh, thank you so much.
Have a wonderful night. That doesn't sound good.
No, please, really.
I want to go
I
home.
really mean, oh, yeah.
Next hour.
So, I'm assuming you guys kind of looked through these. There's obviously not very many. Maybe we could talk about them for about 5 minutes or
Yeah, I
6
want to
minutes?
jump in. I thought the first two were pretty straightforward, but I discussed at some length with Brian, sorry this didn't get reported to the board, but the whole business of this dwelling attached and dwelling detached, and then this proposed thing about dropping that one little bit of that, second, I guess, where did that go? Proposed 1/8 perimeter language, oh, okay.
You're on the first one?
That's
Which one are you on?
on section.
Oh, number 3, yeah, okay. Amend
So we
section
looked at some
definitions.
length at the zoning bylaw and the definitions, and actually are now maybe you have to go to the definitions, but I'll cut to the chase and say, at the end of the day, these two definitions don't seem to be needed at all. So there's a question of whether, they're kind of confusing, but they don't seem necessary any longer. So we may want to just dump them. And they are confusing anyway.
Fully confusing.
Thank you.
Totally confusing.
And so when we were doing our, now we're calling it not a two-family, we're calling it a duplex. There we go, I'll get there eventually. I actually know what it means too. But when we did that, we saw these problems with, and that's where they came out in language, and then concluded maybe we don't need them at all. Because we already have dwelling multiple family, and that would stay. And we have, let's see what else. We've got, how does this work? We have dwelling single family, that would stay. And then we now have a duplex. So we've got dwelling multiple family, dwelling single family, and dwelling, and what becomes a duplex. There's really no purpose for dwelling detached. There's just,
It is funny, dwelling detached seems like duh, right, Captain Obvious?
well, and also if you get a single family, the definition is, and it doesn't say dwelling detached, dwelling single family, it says a detached residential dwelling unit other than a mobile home designed for and occupied by one family only. So there's no, you don't need dwelling detached. And Brian did do a search, again, I'm sorry he's not here, but I just wanna throw it out, cause he and I did discuss it and he was able to do the search. Maybe Diab's can, I don't know if you can do it.
If Brian did it and he didn't find it, that's fine.
Oh, I can't recall but exactly how it worked, but we concluded it may not be
Right now.
necessary. Oh, if Heather's ahead of Diab, there's a race on here.
No.
And the winner gets a free dump sticker.
One match in the definition.
Right,
Spell
one match.
dwelling.
It's
And
the
it's
definition.
definition.
Okay, Heather beat you, you're done.
I am not a
But your
good
next
guy,
one
so
is
I can't
dwelling
say that.
attached, which is actually.
So
the
hold on a
one-
second, so should we have a motion on this one, just to actually make some progress?
Sure.
So to
I mean-
remove, well, somebody can you make a motion?
Well, do you want one at a time?
Unless you guys wanna talk about it more, but,
Well, there's,
well, I mean, on this first one, dwelling detached, cause we haven't talked about attached yet, but
Right.
with
Well,
detached.
I'll make the motion, but we wanna wait till Brian returns,
before
just
we
for
make
one
the
last.
motion, I wanna note that this 1/8 perimeter language,
Isn't attached.
it's in attached, and that's used to determine whether, isn't that used when we talk about duplexes and whether or not?
Nope. In fact, I brought in, I feel so,
I just wanna make sure, because
Right.
we've had
No, I
problems.
have it. no, I have it.
Okay.
Oh boy. In fact, they were approved. Did somebody see that by the Attorney General?
Yeah.
So, let's see, dwelling, it's so simple now, which I love, it is dwelling, in fact, it's dwelling duplex, a building containing two dwelling units that are fully integrated into a coherent, unified massing.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool.
And then, everything else that changed was table of uses, we switched two-family dwelling to duplex dwelling, and so that's already here, that came out when we did the word change, just to conform with duplex and the
So
new
I
definition.
move that we delete the
of them.
definitions, dwelling attached and dwelling detached.
I'll modify that if I can amend it to,
Sure.
subject to, further, a final recommendation from, the town planner and of course town council, but I think that
Okay.
I'll second it with that
Okay,
amendment.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went a little out of order, but we made beautiful progress there.
They're really
So,
dumb.
should we go back to the first one?
Okay, that was-
And we'll just spend a couple minutes so that we don't get too
That
late
we
here.
knew.
One
wanted.
is just a standard.
Yeah, okay,
So-
that's with parking.
Maureen, do you wanna make the motion?
We're doing, what,
Number one.
Brian's number one, yeah.
It's just, like, we talked about this in meeting, it's just.
Yeah,
a-
Yeah, so make the motion to change the word and to or, that's it, in, section 7.3.20.1,
Is there a second?
subsection 7.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries. Whoop, great progress. Okay, now the second one, amend section one. Oh yeah, we were talking about this before.
Now,
We
did
had
this
a
go to
lot
art?
of
Because
discussion
it
on this
actually
one.
was once we got to council that we got sort of bollocksed up.
Maybe we'll,
Have
since
to
this
wait,
is a little
wait,
bit dense, yeah, we'll roll that into the next one, but we'll try to get some feedback before then. Okay. The fourth one on the
Need some
second page,
drafting.
inside third floor, square footage. This was interesting about the FAR instead of square footage, which seemed to make a lot of sense to me. But what do you guys think?
It needs some work.
We need some work, obviously.
I know, but what do you think of the concept difference of using
Switching
the,
to an FAR.
correct,
I believe that Brian said that that was the way most people were going.
right,
Except they have.
but I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah, but
If we switch from FAR, switch from square footage to FAR, the thing that we're trying to actually pick up is actually the size of the house itself.
Exactly.
right.
Not, and so when he keeps going back to FAR, yes, that's how Lexington did it, but they're having huge problems because they're having these massive houses that they cannot, and they have more space and the lots are bigger. We're trying to, if the house gets to a certain size, no matter the lot,
I know, but in theory, well, your point might be, if I said to you, yeah, but then if there's a lot of, if the lot's big, then it kind of helps to kind of absorb the house, then you might say, well, it depends on where the house is located on the lot. So, because
that
if,
has to be picked up by site plan review.
That's right.
Yeah, but the,
Well, if,
But FAR, it leaves it so open,
Yeah,
as if we do square footage, it doesn't leave it so.
it's a little bit more defined.
I know, but the problem with square footage is that it doesn't take into consideration larger lots and that it can absorb, and also, like, I know we have the square footage, those triggers vary by lot size, but still, there's a lot of variation within those general lot sizes.
maybe we should have a combination of both. For a given size lot, you have a given FAR, that seems to be what was done in the CBD. And we can, I haven't thought about this enough to know exactly what the numbers might be that would be reasonable. So,
The other, that's why we split it up into 3 different
yeah,
square footage bases, right? For the different zoning areas that have different size square
Right,
foot
but
base.
acknowledging that that's not perfect,
yeah.
because there are varieties of
FAR isn't
sizes.
perfect either.
No,
But
no,
is the
agreed.
combination better than either of them separately?
To go with an FAR, it took Lexington like a couple of years to do that study.
Yeah.
Well, right, but can we learn from what Lexington did and apply some of that knowledge to what we have in town?
right, right,
I mean, we don't have to do the same study
yeah,
if we can learn from what Lexington did.
right, right.
Look at comparable lots, sizes,
See where you get.
and see where you get. I mean, I haven't looked at Lexington's, I should make a note of that.
Maybe can someone ask Brian to
So,
bring that when
but-
we meet again?
Okay,
What bothers
Maybe
me
even in our
about, is when
packet.
this was originally written, those square footage numbers of the houses included all finished space.
That's right.
Right,
And what we're finding is they are not finishing
Right,
the
right.
attic.
Right,
So
no,
it was
we get that.
intended that to
Yeah.
be a finished space.
Right,
If you
right.
can live in it, it's part of that square footage. So I understand that some of the realtors are trying to now, because they never liked it to begin with, right? So they're trying to use this as a way to fight. But at the end of the day, the intention of the law was that all finished spaces went into that square footage. And we are seeing people who are using that as a loophole. We have a loophole.
Yes,
But it doesn't change that this was their intention.
but I think that the first sentence, I agree with what Brian's written here. If the third floor is potentially habitable according to the IBC, then we should count that square footage.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if that, I mean, so I believe we all agree with that.
yeah.
So that makes it better, but I still think that the way we still have problems.
What is the next problem?
I think this is still leading to houses which are too large. And I think that I'm uncomfortable with the way we've split things up in terms of the sizes of houses. I mean, we just did it based on a gut feeling.
Yeah, and then we would come back and review
Yeah, we
it.
didn't really do any sort of analysis. We said,
We'd keep watching it. I
these
remember
seem
Charles
reasonable.
We were tiptoeing.
Yeah, so I think that we can, I think it would be useful to, if the first thing we wanna do for town meeting is to say, we need to close the loophole.
That's
Yes.
what my thought is, but I
There
think we
you
should
go.
continue to analyze the.
Yeah, so we put in this, we remove the loophole, and then
Yeah.
for the fall, we revisit this square footage
Right, right.
versus.
FAR.
I think if we're concerned about this massive large houses on large lots and where they're positioned, then that's also a setback issue. And maybe.
well, not
we-
necessarily, because you could still be within,
Yeah, what I-
not
what
have
I-
a setback
what I want is
encroachment
certain
issue,
lots,
but still.
But we could make, if we're worried that they're like within,
On the east side of town.
we can make the setbacks bigger.
No,
and
I,
remove it.
all I'm saying, I'm just acknowledging that even if you have a large, house and a large, parcel, that it might make a difference where it is if it's more visible, as opposed to like in the middle of a large lot where it's not as visible.
No, I agree, I'm just
Yeah,
saying, if
I
you
mean,
wanna
but I
try to
wasn't
address
suggesting that you'd
problem-
be within the setback or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, but if you wanted to address that problem, I'm just trying to throw out, if this is the problem that we want to ameliorate,
So I haven't,
then we could say.
I was actually sort of suggesting the opposite, that like if somebody does have a larger lot, then it should be that they get the benefit of, that larger lot being able to absorb a larger house.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree,
big square
but
footage.
the thing I'm worried, the problem you raised was that larger
Then I was
house-
acknowledging, maybe it depends on where it is on that lot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if that's the worry, then we could say, yeah, you can build a bigger house, but we're gonna put in a bigger setback so that we protect the neighbors. And so, that's all I'm saying, is that could be one possible solution to that,
Potentially.
allowing them to build whatever size house fits the lot, and making sure that they aren't.
But it may not fit the neighborhood. That is the,
That's a separate issue.
Okay.
And that's why there might be review triggered.
What section is the square footage in? Does anyone know it off the top of their head?
No.
Because, I mean, they are big houses. These are like 5,000 and a third of the town. It's not like we're talking about,
Wait, aren't we, what issue are we talking about? Aren't we just talking about the issue of whether or not, okay, so we're not talking about the issue of the attic anymore, so that one's done. So now we're just talking about whether or not to, what the trigger is, the
Not tonight,
FAR or
not
square
tonight.
footage? Yeah,
no, that would be pushed off to fall. I agree with
Yeah.
Deb on that.
Yeah,
But what
so-
I'm saying is, I haven't heard feedback that it's too restrictive. If, my
Right.
feedback I've been, is people are really appreciating this process.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Throughout town,
Agreed.
and
But-
that, the one thing is, and the only thing we see is that, and it's not even homeowners doing it, it's developers who
Exactly.
are using this and not finishing their base, or they're not finishing their third floors.
I'm thinking
Well, I
that
think
the
we're
house next to
uniform
me
on
is
the-
doing that as well, 'cause it doesn't-
we're pretty, I think we're uniform on the point about the attic. I think
Yeah.
you sort of identified that sort of do this now and then,
Yeah,
analyze the other one later. So
yeah.
is that kind of the, feeling
General
of the board at
direction,
this
somebody
point?
would
Yeah,
work
okay.
around,
I
you know.
was just gonna state the square footage.
Actually, you know, I'm sure now it's, hi Brian, he'll probably watch this.
You
Yeah,
better watch us,
But,
Brian.
but the point about the FAR though, I think is a legitimate one, because it was pretty arbitrary how we came up with the square footages. And if a lot is larger, I mean, I'm not suggesting anything
I would
negative.
describe it as a baby step, that was all. We
Yeah, I'm not
understood.
saying anything negative, I'm just saying that if there's a different
I
way
don't
to
think it
measure,
was
it's always
arbitrary,
good to
so
No,
consider.
Brian researched the assessor's
right,
department
right.
and the square footages of
Right.
houses in
Yeah.
town.
It was not arbitrary, I just wanna make that clear.
Okay, I withdraw my comment.
Yeah, but he did research a lot of the square footages of the houses and all.
But
the
acknowledging it was still nevertheless coming up with a number and not,
Exactly.
anyway,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement,
At the
yeah.
same time, we promised as
Number
well.
5,
That was
amend
on top of it.
chapter 9, sign bylaw of the general bylaw, we're getting our, we're
We
doing
can't
that?
do
Well, I suppose,
We can't do, we have to do that as a separate,
What original about what?
Outdoor
it's a general
lighting.
bylaw.
We can't
No,
even.
it's not outdoor.
So we have a
Oh, I see,
problem.
it's chapter 9 of the general
amend
bylaw.
the town bylaws.
Oh, I
No,
mean, it's,
town- it's
yeah, we're a
50-50,
town
it's the same
agency,
thing.
we can do
it.
that, yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
a-
The thing is though, is this is not being enforced. Just, I mean,
I assume he's got some reason it's been recodified or something, I don't know
no,
why.
it's just changing the section reference number, but this
Right.
actually is not being
Oh,
enforced. So this
different
may-
topic,
This
yeah,
may bring up a huge
yeah,
can of worms with town meeting. I have no problem changing with it, but
well,
if you notice, we have a lot of light up signs back in town
Yep.
again, and no one's enforcing them to come
I
out of the
know,
windows.
we got those knocked back about 10 years ago.
I think there's one that's grandfathered in, and that's, one of the pizzas.
How are they getting by the town sign committee, or whatever?
No, no, they just beat it up.
Oh.
And then,
But
so the
they
enforcement
can-
officers just tell them to
Right,
get
it's
those
up.
lighted signs
Okay.
out of the windows, but it's not happening. So I
Okay,
just want, that it's going to open a can of worms, but if the section that references
Anyway.
is incorrect, then we keep it.
it's,
But it takes a worthwhile can of worms.
So,
somebody's gotta go
having
fishing.
said all that, what's your view of,
recommend that we place it on the warrant, I guess.
I'm fine changing the, and so the reference is correct.
It's
Mhm.
right,
Right.
it's a
Right.
Scrivener's type of
It's-
thing, I think.
And
Right.
then taking it as this is a, or a
that's
responsibility,
a
so the
motion.
Okay.
numbers reference each other. But in
So,
terms of the actual law itself, and
well,
Oh, I see, and it's a reference to the zoning bylaw, I wasn't focusing. Well,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
I move that the planning board submit a warrant article to amend chapter 9 of the general bylaw to reference the correct section in the Winchester zoning bylaw.
Second,
all those in favor?
I,
Motion carries.
So,
Okay, so the only thing we have left over is this issue about the waiver one, which we'll handle at the next
Yes.
meeting, so,
well, on third floor square footage.
Deb, can you read the last part of
I think you have this, don't you,
It's right
Liz,
here.
in your packet?
Chapter 9 of the general bylaw.
I essentially just read that.
That's
so-
what you just said, okay, great.
thank you, Liz, always better to double check than guess.
And they get back to your desk, doing the minutes, and find yourself short.
So, this is interesting, okay, did the ZBA meet last night?
Yes, they did.
What
They met.
happened?
They did it in like 20 minutes.
What
The
happened?
entire agenda.
What'd they do
What,
with them?
did Gen
Do you
come
remember?
up?
All I know is
Because
that's
we were
why I
all on the steering
remember
committee, right, yeah, when the guy was
the
looking,
president came in
yeah.
and said, where is the ZBA? It's because they had already finished.
But did Gen go up?
What happened?
Closed.
Oh, really?
What
Did-
happened?
No one knows. I don't know. I wasn't in there. I haven't got an answer. No
I said,
one's
I
there.
said hi to Larry, but that was about it.
Yeah.
I guess they were coming.
Well, anyway, I'll ask Brian to send an update on, because it is
Yeah,
nice
we
to know,
always-
like, what,
Exactly.
what's,
And
what
actually, he
happens.
should copy the other.
Okay, and then, do you wanna, approve the minutes the next meeting, given that it's
Yeah.
almost 10:15?
Exactly.
So,
Past my bedtime.
okay, so do we, would somebody make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All the, second?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hey, thanks, kids, that was a great meeting. Thank you, WinCam,
Yeah,
thank you.
doing it without Brian.